love me cause I'm poppin'. This a layup, this a rebound, then it's driving. Tyson with the fade, not the air, my hands rocking. When I link with ballpoint, you know it's knocking. I'm not the same. Thinking money made me change, nothing else to blame. Bougie stuck up in my way, singing Gucci gang. Gucci gang, think I'm Gucci Mane. I'm just playing in the cut, I got my Vans on. I'm not selfish, I get on and put my mans on. Always greedy since the day I got my first safe. 5'7", but I'm 6'8" when I stand on the money pals. Need a money counter, I broke my thumb from thumbing down. Wifey on my line, she told me to dumb it down. Mama on my line, asking how I'm dumbing now. I think you only love me cause I'm poppin'. This a layup, this a rebound, then it's driving. Tyson with the fade, not the air, my hands rocking. When I link with ballpoint, you know it's knocking. Get out my way, I'm so unashamed. Throw it to my veins, like my 2K green or blue, I'm not into games. Focus on your player's face while I'm stacking change. We throw out what you got on your whole crew late. Every time I drop it, knock you make the screw face. I can't stand to be around people who are two-faced.
Yeah.
I can't stand to do some business if you're too late.
Check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, beautiful people? Welcome back. It's your boy Blue. We're back again, man. Happy Friday to you. What's going on, Adam? Good to see you, man. Nick, yo, what's up, man? Good to see you. Welcome to the stream, my man. Raven, Christopher Ramirez, Extreme Boy. Welcome to the stream as well. Good to see you guys. Hopefully, you guys have been having a great week. I hope, again, that you guys are staying healthy out there. You're staying safe, staying home. You're enjoying some gaming, enjoying some family time, some quality time that you may not usually, do. But we're back, man. We're on Pilotedge and we're on X-Plane, and this right here behind me is the Citation S550, or I should say the Citation 2 S550. We're trying out a brand new sound pack. Actually, it's not really brand new. It's been around a while, but it's new to me. A new sound pack by FTSim, the same guy who made the A321 Neo sound pack, as well as a 757 sound pack. He has like 10-11 different sound packs out there already, which is pretty crazy. This dude is hard at work. I don't know where the heck he gets all these sound packs from. Like, how is he making these? But anyways, he has a Citation one. He also has a Fokker 51, in case you're interested. But the guy, his name is FTSim, so big shout out to him. I don't actually know him, but he's done a great job, and I've liked his product so much that I did go ahead and support him on Patreon. So the Citation 2, guys, and we're gonna check out the sound pack, but as well flying around the Pilotedge network. Once again, we're here in Spokane, Washington, and we're gonna be heading for first stop to Portland, second stop Paine Field in Seattle, and that's if we have time to do that. And if we have more time, we'll figure something to do from there. We might jump in an X Cub or something like that. Who knows? Anthony Place, what's up, man? Good to see you. Christopher Ramirez, Minecraft Gamer, what's up, man? Good to see you. Good morning, guys. Good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is. Buenos dias, buenas noches, whatever, man. It's good. But I'm good. I'm excited. It's been a good week. It's been busy. It's been really busy. I have had a lot of work, actually. I wasn't able to stream yesterday or the day before that because of work. I really wanted to stream. I wanted to do some trucking again on Thursday, and I wanted to get another flight in on Wednesday. So I was kind of bummed out about that, but at the same time, I'm very happy, I should say, and thankful that I have work to actually do, because I know a lot of people right now, with all the, the coronavirus and all that stuff, we got people who are out of the job right now. People are getting laid off. People who, their shop is closed down. But again, thankfully, I do have work. It's been busier than ever, actually, here where I'm at. And so I'm just thankful that I actually do have work to do, and that the bills are paid. So if your bills are paid, make sure you guys are thankful for that. But anyways, man, good stuff. Graham Porter, welcome to the stream, man. Good to see you, man. Dope. So this is, again, the Citation 2. This plane's been out for a minute. I really freaking enjoy this plane. This is probably one of my personal favorite, probably not the favorite, but one of my personal favorite business jets when it comes to X-Plane right now. So one thing we need to do, we're gonna be flying IFR, but we need to get our mic check and all that stuff figured out. We'll get the systems kind of turned on. I'll get the music turned down, and we'll see what sounds this thing actually has to offer. I haven't heard them all, so we'll check it out. Hopefully everything is working on fine on the stream. And let's see, we need the, wow, I can't really see it because for one, I have shades on. So let's take them off. We'll fly on when it gets sunny, but take the shades off. So I'm gonna turn the, is that the left battery? Yeah, there it is. That's up. There it is. Battery switch on. We have GPU power right now. You can already kind of hear some things turning on. Where's the GPU switch? I think it's, where's the GPU power? All right, we'll kind of go through it as I remember it. We'll turn on the nav lights. I don't know why it's hard to see these things right now. Aiden, what's up, man? Good to see you. What is my favorite business jet? It used to be the Challenger for X-Plane, but now I'm thinking it might be more towards that Legacy 650. I'm kind of torn right now. I think, yeah, that's it right there. All right, should be pretty simple. We're using the GTN 750. It's built into this aircraft. It's a third-party add-on to the third-party Carenado add-on. US Airways, what is my Twitch? It's on the bottom of the screen, at I am Blue Games. Nicholas Betts, what's up, man? Good to see you as well. This plane does look amazing. I gotta find out my quick keys, sorry. I think it's this one. Is this the one that I use? Yeah, it's this one. Okay, cool. Dope. All right, now that our avionics are on, we'll see if our radios are working, and we're gonna go ahead and tune in to see load. Nope, that's not what I want. I want to click on that, and then I want to go to waypoint info, and then we're gonna go to the ATIS, and we'll check that out. I did have an issue last time we flew on Pilotedge with being able to actually hear things. I already have the ATIS, but I was testing that out. Let's go check out clearance delivery on 127.55. And hopefully today we'll be able to hear things. What I may do, let's go ahead and put some fuel in this baby first. Oh, I hear voices. Heck yeah. Put some fuel in it. Today's flight is about 45 minutes. We're gonna put about 2 hours of fuel in there. And I'll apply changes. And then we need to get our clearance and all that, so let's go ahead and turn them up. So I did hear him for a little bit.
Open ground, November 60 Foxtrot at Landmark, ready for taxi.
I can hear him. Average Sun, what's up, man? Good to see you. Tazzy, welcome to the stream. Yeah, I love the Challenger. It's just it hasn't been updated in a while, and it's kind of it used to be the best, but now there's better opportunities out there.
Sorry, runway 28 left, taxi.
My profession is I am a graphic and web designer. That is my full-time job.
Taxi 2 at left via Charlie Bravo.
All right, let's go and get our clearance guide.
Stockholm 150 right, direct Lowry, cross Lowry at 7,800, cleared RNAV, runway 17 right approach.
Just getting my notes ready. In case he throws me back something crazy. All right, let's get it. Where we at? Let's do a mic check first with Spokane. Spokane clearance delivery, November 16 Bravo, radio check.
November 16 Bravo, by 5.
Spokane clearance, November 16 Bravo, IFR to Portland. Let's see what we get. My dog is actually at my parents' house. He didn't, when we moved out of my parents' place, we did not take the dog with us. So the dog has to pay rent, and he didn't want to pay rent, so he had to stay there.
16 Bravo. Okay, clearance on request.
All right, clearance on request. So he's probably changing something. Let's see. Not even as a pilot, you already smell like success. Thank you very much. Appreciate that, man. Still a dream. I still want to be a pilot, though. The cool thing about the major that I do have and the profession that I do have is that I can use it in really any arena. U.S. Airways, bro, thank you, man, for the Twitch follow. Greatly appreciate that, my dude. But yeah, so with my profession, I can kind of get my hands into a lot of different things.
16 Bravo, clear to Portland Air. Spokane 6 departure, radar vector Z0, and then as file, gain 1-2000. Departure frequency 123.75, squawk 7226.
All right, so we got clear to the Portland via Spokane. Was it the Spokane 2 arrival? Climb at 12000, departure 123.75, squawk 7226, and we'll be to Zegro, and then as file 16 Bravo.
16 Bravo. Read that correct. It's the Spokane departure.
Spokane's departure. Thank you very much. All right, we go pick that up. All right, so he didn't really change it. He just gave us a departure. We didn't have a departure before. Jorge, what's up, man? Good to see you. Seatbelt locked, waiting to fly. All right, we should be off the ground pretty soon. Since we're not in a Z-belt or something like that, it's not going to be too complicated to get off of the ground, so we should be out of this thing pretty quick today. I want to kind of stay on schedule. All right, so right now we're at the Central GA ramp. Let's go and get our departure, which is the Spokane 6 departure. Spokane 6 departure. He didn't give us a runway, but we're probably gonna get either 26 or 21. So I don't know. So this is the Spokane 6. So I wanna definitely pay attention this time. I don't want to get in trouble with flying the wrong departure and stuff today. I'm gonna do my best. So here's our initial climb right here. If we get runway 21, we'll be heading 210 on initial climb. If we get runway, actually we get it number if we get 21 or 26, so it's the same either way. Let's kind of read through this. Runway 21 standard lower if authorized minimum climb of 250 per nautical mile to 5200. Ground speed knots. Runway 21 climb heading 210 or ATC assign out the heading for vectors to assign route fix. Climb left, turn 210. All right, so either way, whether we take 21 or 26, we need to climb and do a heading of 210, so we'll keep that in mind. And the top altitude is 6,000. He actually, from what I heard, he gave us an altitude of 12,000 to climb to. Airport elevation is 2385, and I think that is all that concerns us at the moment. So let's go ahead and put that in our FM, or I should say our GTN. I don't know what runway we're getting. Departure, let's just say 21 for now, and we could always change that. Departure is going to be the Spokane. I guess I have 3 in here. It should be the same. There's vectors. We'll add waypoint. The next waypoint is going to be, I think it was Zegro, Zulu Echo, Golf Romeo Oscar. After Zegro, we're going direct to, hold on, back, add waypoint. Direct to Yankee, Echo November Tango Lima. What a weird name of a waypoint that is. And after that, we'll continue to our arrival in the Portland. Kilo Papa Delta X-ray. That's Portland International.
64 Foxtrot, when you're
what up, Captain Bombosa? Good to see you, man. G-Man Dukes. How's quarantine life? It's not going too bad, honestly. It's weird. It's kind of like work as usual. I'm still working from home. My wife is still going to work because her job hasn't closed because she's essential. She really is, I guess. But yeah, so that's what's going on there. It's been pretty good though. I kind of honestly I've been liking the fact that my wife has been stuck home with me. Runway 28 left. I think that's it. Yentl, I don't know what runway we're gonna get in Portland.
Takeoff,
Alright, they're landing and departing runway 10 left and 10 right. Visual approach is in use. That should be fun. Via fire departures contact, blah, blah, blah. All right, so 10.
You going
We'll just put
Alpha, or are you going
runway
north?
10.
I'm going north on Alpha.
And we'll load that arrival.
Second 50, Roger. Turn on Alpha depart.
And then we're expecting to go up to about 32,000 feet today, if we make it that high. I don't know that we'll make it that high. Tripix, what's up, man? Good to see you, man. Welcome back. Good to see you. I put in our squad code before I forget. 7226. Oops, I did not want to do that. And enter. And I think we're done. It has us topping off at 15,000, so maybe we're not going to actually get high enough as I filed. We'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, well, we're ready. Let's go ahead. I'm telling you, I love this thing. I know every time we fly with a plane that has a GTN in it, I brag about it because I just love it. And I think that if you fly GA and you have a plane that supports this in the 3D cockpit, even if you don't, you can still make it pop up. Oops, that's a gear. Like this, you can make it pop up on your screen even if you don't have this in your cockpit. But it's super helpful, man. I go here to airport info. We're on clearance right now. I can switch to ground on 121.9 or ground point 9. And now boom, we're on ground. And then I can put tower there on standby. Our departure frequency is 123.75. That is right here, so we can put that in later on. So it's just super helpful, man. Super helpful. All right, so we're here. Again, we don't really know what runway we're going to get. He didn't really tell us, but we know we're going to get 2.5 or 2.6 or 2.1. And either way, we're good to go. I believe we're in a non-movement area. Wow, it's quiet out here. Let's see. Yeah, we're definitely in a non-movement area. We can go all the way. Yeah, here's a line right here. So we can taxi to our right and over there. So we'll go ahead and get the engine started. So we can get the door shut. It's so quiet out here. It's like so loud in there and it's so quiet. All right, where's my buttons at? Here it is. All right, so that's the baggage doors. We'll shut the main door and then we'll turn the power on before we unplug the ground power, get rid of the static elements. All right, let's do it. Christopher. Is Gaemon going to be our first officer today? He's always our first officer. Good morning, Nick, man. Good to see you. Am I planning on driving ETS today? I don't know. I do plan on driving sometime in the future. Matter of fact, I want to play that or ATS. But let me get back to that. Let's get in the air, guys. Let's get flying, and then we'll talk a bit more, all right? As well, Infinite Captain, I know Vulcan has been updated, or X-Plane has been updated to 11.5. The Vulcan update, as I like to call it. But you have to be in the public beta, so you have to sign up. Not sign up, just click the public beta button. The issue is, right now, for me, I'm not using it right now because it kept crashing. So I did install it yesterday. It crashed me like every time I tried to load in various planes, various locations. So I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna wait a while. I didn't want to stream with it because it was not stable. That's why they call it beta. Anyway, let's get it going. Let's see, so doors are closed, beacon, turn that on. Really all I gotta do is just hit the fuel boost right here, turn on the ignition, and I'm gonna hit crank. That's literally all I gotta do. All right, there's 10%.
Portland, very good.
Wait for 20. I think 20 is what I need. 18, 19, 20. I'll click on this right here. There's engine 1 starting. Engine 2, I should say. And we'll crank engine 1. Right.
Sure, X-ray Golf, Oscar Portland clearance. Clear to the airport. Portland 1 departure, right of X battleground. And then as filed. Maintain 3000, back to 10,000 and 10 minutes. Departure 3124.35, squawk 5.
Oh yeah, she's firing up.
44.
And we'll go ahead and turn off the right ignition, right boost pump, turn on the right generator. Left engine still spooling up. Alright, left engine is spooled up and stabilized. Ignition off, fuel boost pump off, generator reset and on. Ground power disconnect. listen to her. Doesn't it sound good though? We'll turn on the pitot, static, windshield, and that'll be it. It's not too cold out here, I don't think. And altimeter is shoot. Kilo Echo. $3010. Put it here. We gotta put it again on the top. All right, and we're fired up. What does it say? Something fail. AC fail, inverter fail, anti-skids. When you turn the anti-skid on, that light goes away. Inverter, avionic power. All right, so those none-seer lights to go away. We'll set our initial altitude to 12,000. That's gonna be 120. And now we need to do our cabin pressure. It's down here. We're gonna be going up to, we don't even know, maybe 32. Let's be prepared to go to 32 if it comes to that. About right down should be good. Everything else down here looks good. Do we have gyro? Boom, boom. We'll turn on the transponder to on. Actually, that's not a transponder, that's something else. Alright, she's ready to move. Secure the cockpit, guys. Yeah, so again, this sound pack, guys, is by FTSim. So the original sound pack for Carenado actually sounds really good in my opinion. Like, really good. Like, I'm really happy and like satisfied with the way that the original sound pack sounds. But when I found out that there was another one by FTSim who also make the Neo sound pack, I was like, well, I'll give it a try. Alright, recognition lights on for our taxi. Anti-collision will stay off, as are our strobes. Lane lights off. Alright, parking brake released. And let's roll. Headphones on. We're not taking off, but it still sounds amazing. Ay, ay, ay. Alright, while we're moving forward, I'm just gonna really quickly set up our, make sure this is tuned. We'll be taking a right to Gulf. We have Alpha. Wait, that's not the right airport. Hold on a second. Where are we at? What's the ICO here? Hold on a second. I think I got the wrong ATIS. KGEG. I typed KEGE, which is Eagle County. KGEG. Alright, we have Lima. So altimeter is actually 29907. Wow, that was a mistake. He'd be like, you have what? You have Alpha? Where? Oh no, yeah, that's right. Really quick, Rafe, so you guys are asking how to enter into to get the beta for X-Plane. Open your installer, just go to your X-Plane. I don't know how this would work if you have it through Steam, but if you don't have it through Steam, you can just open up your X-Plane folder. And where your exe is for X-Plane, you also see an X-Plane installer exe. Click on the installer and then go ahead and just click update. Once you get the update, it'll like check something really quick, and then on the bottom of that window it'll say opt into public beta or something like that. You just click on that button and it'll basically will download the beta, which is right now 11.5. I would say enter with caution. It is a beta, so things may not work. They've already posted a lot of things that are not compatible. A lot of planes, a lot of add-ons have not updated their add-ons to Vulcan or to the new X-Plane update yet. So, alright, we're gonna hold short here. Man, that does sound good. Even like there's some sounds in there that weren't there before, like the parking brake sound. That's pretty nice. Put the flaps down. So I flew this thing not long ago. Alright, so we're already on ground, I believe. That is correct. 121.9er. We are Citation. Actually, no, on. And we're at Gulf. I think it's is that Centennial GA ramp? Yeah, Centennial GA ramp at Gulf with Lima ready to taxi. Spokane ground, Citation 16 Bravo. We're at the Centennial GA ramp at Golf, ready to taxi with Lima.
Spokane ground, runway 21, taxi via Golf.
2-1 via Golf, Citation 16 Bravo. Alright, 2-1, that's over there. So Golf, super easy taxi, I like it. Parking brake released. And we're gonna roll forward. Don't forget hydraulics. 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 Where is that? Where is that button at? Did I not click on that? I think I did everything. Alright, good night, Anthony. I know it's in the middle of the night over there in Australia. Even listen to the wing view, man. Oh, it sounds good. It's like, I thought it sounded good before, but now it's just been enhanced. Soul plane. Alright, let's turn ATC up because I could barely hear them that last time. Nick installing Vulcan right now. Tell me how it works, man. I want to try it and see how my frames did. I may try it again. I didn't really have a lot of time to give it a try. I didn't have a lot of time yesterday because I was working, and then obviously today I wanted to actually do a successful stream. So I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and uninstall the beta update, and then I'll reinstall it later. So so don't worry. Once you install it, you can go back to the release version. So like if you have a lot of problems, if you can't fly a lot of planes, like for example, I don't know if it's updated yet, but as of last time I checked, all the toeless planes basically were not compatible with the new 11.5 update. US Airways, you can get X-Plane on your phone or tablet. It's not X-Plane 11, it's just called X-Plane, but it's basically X-Plane 11. You got everything set on high environment, shadows off, parking planes off. I still get 40 frames per second. What did you do wrong? I don't know, 40 frames per second don't sound too bad to me. Right now, we're probably getting 40 myself in Orbix area. G-Man, when's the next Infinite Flight? I do not have a specific date or time that I'm going to do another Infinite Flight video. Mentioned before that I haven't completely stopped. I just haven't done any videos in a while. All right, let's go ahead and switch over to tower, and then we'll get approach 12375. 12375. Look up. All right, we're not crashing. And enter. All right, so now we're on tower, I believe 1188. And before we take off, we're going to take another look at our departure. I want to make sure I fly correctly. Actually, pretty nice day out. The weather's been pretty good out in the Northwest, Pacific Northwest lately. Usually it's like horrible, nasty weather. Today is not too bad. Can I taxi any slower? This airport is by Vertical Simulations, Spokane. Spokane? You guys corrected me last stream that I was saying it wrong. Whenever I roll to this line, I always think about real life. My first solo flight, whenever I roll up to this line, how my heart is gonna just be pounding. Like, oh man, I can't wait. It's gonna be amazing. All right, really quickly before we get going, I want to just make sure we're gonna do this right because we did it wrong last time. We are here. We are hither. And when we depart, we'll be departing, we're taking off on this runway, 210, which should already be the heading that we're at. I'm going to set our heading mode to 210. We'll be going pretty quickly to autopilot. 210 is going to be over here. Here's 210. 210, altitude set to 12,000. Christopher says before he put his hand on the side, take a prayer. Yes, we're gonna need one of those, baby. We're gonna need one. I actually have not been on Pilotedge in exactly a week. That was last week when we flew with Geo in the Legacy 650. I haven't had a chance to fly sadly, all week long. So I'm excited to get it in, but at the same time, I'm like, am I gonna be rusty? How are we looking? I want to make sure I get it right. I don't want to make any mistakes today. I want to have fun, but not make any mistakes. So initial climb to the 6,000 or assigned higher altitude, which was 12,000. So that's what we're gonna do. 210 and that's it really. After that, I think we do vectors until he's gonna give us he should give us direct to Zegro, which I don't think is gonna be out here. So that's what we're gonna expect. And if anything, he throws a curveball at us, we'll just swing at it. All right, Santiago, what's up, man? Good to see you. This weather is not X environment. This weather is, what did I say? Cloud art? It's something. Anyway, let's get going. Spokane Tower, November 16 Bravo. Holding short runway 21, ready to go.
November 16 Spokane Tower, runway 21, cleared for takeoff, wind 200 and 15.
Cleared for takeoff, runway 21. Citation 16 Bravo. All right, let go. I got my autopilot up here. Prepare us. We got our altitude select armed, and we're gonna get our heading select armed as well. So as soon as I hit the autopilot button, it'll be working like that. It'll also see, now we see it on our flight director here in the middle. All right, guys, we're clear to take off. We are crossing. Oh shoot! Holy crap, Delta! Holy Delta! That was sketchy. If I had moved up just a little bit closer, we'd be dead. That'd be a very quick end to today's flight. So basically, we'll take off and flat runway heading until told otherwise. So I'm gonna wait for him to get off of the runway. I think that was a 737, 700. I don't have a blue arrow livery on this plane, but I absolutely need one, man. I've had this plane way too long to not have a blue arrow livery. All right, we're gonna take off. He's turning. All right, here you go. Full steam ahead. Ooh, she sounds nice. Oh, she sounds good. Oh, it sounds good. Headphones on, guys.
Portland departure. Contact Portland departure, check go for the Oscar.
Man, rotate. Just like that. Positive clown, gear up. Woo! Oh, it sounds so good.
Bravo, contact Spokane departure.
Departure 16 Bravo. Alright, let's go ahead and go into autopilot because we gotta talk to people now. Listen to that thing. Oh my god, listen to her whine. Y'all damper on, autopilot on. Alright, do your thing, plane. I gotta do radios. Alright, we're passing 55. Ooh, lane lights are off.
Passing 1,400, climbing 3,000.
SXGIO, Portland departure, radar contact, climb and maintain 10,000.
Climb and maintain 1,000, SXGIO.
Departure, Citation 16 Bravo, climbing past 6,600 for 12,000.
Citation 16 Bravo, Spokane departure, radar contact.
Alright, so she's radar contact. She did not give us any other vectors, so we'll continue flying heading 210 until she tells us to do something else. But man, these sounds, holy crap, I don't even want to talk.
Sky High 206, clear to Taos Airport. All departures are heading 340. Radar vector is Albuquerque. has filed.
Flaps up.
Maintain 9,000, expect 11,000, 1 minutes after departure. Departure frequency 127.4, squawk 2441.
Oh my god, the sound.
Sky 2063 back correct, expect runway 3.
Fairing fans, you can use a mouse to fly helicopters, but I would strongly not recommend it. I would strongly recommend not to.
Bravo, clear direct Zegro and contact Seattle Center 132.6.
All right, clear to Zegro and then to Seattle 123.6. What's this problem? All right, Zegro is. We'll hit direct right here.
SXTIO clear direct.
Zegro and activate. And in nav mode. And then we'll switch over to Seattle. Wait, that ain't right. Oh shoot. What the heck? Sorry, can I get that Seattle frequency again for November 16 Bravo?
Seattle Center 132.6.
132. Alright, 132.6. Thank you very much. Good day. Alright, I was like, that don't look right. Alright, 132.6. We're level at 12,000. Power. Oof. Oof. That spool down sound. Oh my god. Alright, so we're talking to center, Seattle, Citation 16 Bravo. We're at level at 12,000.
Citation 16 Bravo, Seattle Center, calling maintain flight level 230.
230 for Citation 16 Bravo. And it's my favorite controller, guys. Alright, so up to 230. And this thing sounds so good. Like, I already love this plane. Now I have so many more reasons to fly. Alright, back to our autopilot. And then we'll hit Alt Select. We could use IAS mode. And so that's going to basically take off at the speed we have selected here. So we'll take off. Well, not take off. We'll climb at. This thing is pretty fast. We can do like 220. This thing likes to overspeed. And we'll start giving some more power. Now it's going to pitch for that. It should. That's what should happen. Yeah. There we go. Oh my god. I don't know if the exterior sounds changed. I think it was only interior sound if I remember correctly. But now that we're above 10,000 feet, we can shut off the landing lights. And I'll turn the seatbelt signs. I'll leave those on. We're still climbing. Everything else is good to go. Once we get to our cruise, it'll be a pretty short flight on the way there. We're passing 16,000 now. Flying direct to Zegro. Let's go ahead and make sure that's happening. Actually, we just flew past Zegro just now. Next waypoint's me Yentl. And you can see our top of descent. Can you guys actually see this? Let's see. Let's go closer. But this is our plan. So right now it has
16 Bravo contact Seattle Center 125.1.
125.1. 16 Bravo. Hold on. Too many ones. Backspace. 125.1. I hope that's what she said. Yes, Seattle Center. And there is 18,000. We'll go to standard. 2992. Seattle Center, Citation 16 Bravo, passing 19,000 for flight level 230.
Citation 16 Bravo, Seattle Center, climb maintain flight level 320.
Climbing to flight level 320, Citation 16 Bravo. All right, so we are going to get to 32,000 feet today. I tell you, man, this Citation climbs like a beast, man. There it is. 320 is down there, armed. We're passing 20,000 feet. We're not passing out, so I think we're pressurized. Okay. Flying over the beautiful Orbix. Is this Washington? Yeah, this is Washington. Let me turn it down so we can go outside, because it's gonna be loud out there. Oh hello. Oh hello. Not bad, not bad. Speedbird, no, this is not. This is not 11.5. This is the regular old X-plane. I'm not ready to stream 11.5. I need to do some testing. Graham, yes, I would love to have a menu. A light snack menu though. It's a short flight.
What would you like to do?
I know, right? If this is Orbix, can you imagine Microsoft Flight Simulator? It's gonna be crazy. I'm excited, obviously. I'm excited. Are there any alpha testers in the chat? And if you are you allowed to tell us? I guess we would know. I mean, I guess we would know.
360, I'll just parallel you with the airway, and once you get to 9,000, I'll give you a quick vector to join it.
Gorgeous plane. I remember when I first downloaded this plane, I was like, I love private jets. I'm just not a huge fan of this one. Like, I'm not a huge fan of how it looks. Like, I like the back part, but I don't like the front. But the more I fly it, like, it just all around it's definitely probably one of my favorite private jets. And somebody was asking me earlier, what are my favorite business jets? Let's first go down the list of what business jets we have for X-plane right now that are actually worth mentioning. Let me go down my list. I do have a list. Where is it? Here we go. Alright, so we have the Eclipse 550. I do recommend that plane. It's a great plane. We have the Citation, which we're flying right now. We have the Challenger 350, which is also, in my opinion, still a really good plane. We need to fly it again. We need to fall in love with that plane again. We have the Carenado Premier 1A. I also really like that plane. Maybe not as much as I like this one. Nah, I definitely like this one more than the Premier 1A. I don't recommend the Phenom by Carenado. Do not buy that. I don't recommend the Hawker 500, whatever it's called. What else is there? Falcon 50, I actually like that plane a lot. A lot of people talk down on it because it's Carenado and it's not like super realistic. But it's pretty. It sounds really good. And it does a job until we get the 7X. So I like the Falcon 50. The Citation Mustang, a lot of people like it. It's not my preferred jet. It's an okay plane. And I think that's all we got. Yeah, that's all I have on my list. Beautiful shot. Let me take a screenshot. Why am I not taking screenshots? Alright, how high are we? We're at 29,000 feet. Speed looks good. Actually, just past 30,000 now. Oh shoot, did I just hit G? I did! I didn't mean to press G. That's a screenshot. Yeah, tell me how Vulcan works for you guys. It's not there yet for me. It's not there. I haven't even got to see anything. Like every time I load up Vulcan, it's not even like, it doesn't even, I don't know, I don't even get a chance to see my frames because it just crashes before it even loads. Thank you, Samurai Black, for the host. I really do appreciate that, man. Really appreciate that. All right. that sound means we're 1,000 away from our cruise level. And it also means it's time for some music to play in the background. And what else am I missing here? Vulcan is just as long to load as my regular X-Plane installation, so it didn't change. Somebody asked me something earlier. Let me go back through the chat here real quick. Somebody asked me something that I missed. I apologize for that. Again, Speedbird 1, this is not 11.5, this is the older X-Plane 11. How many toilet paper rolls does this flight cost, or are we paying with hand sanitizer? Because I ain't paying more than 3 drops if you don't have any chocolate cake on board. Gotcha. I believe this flight is probably a, let me think. What's more valuable? Toilet paper rolls or hand sanitizer? Probably hand sanitizer. This flight is probably a 5 drop of hand sanitizer and 3 toilet rolls. That's how much this flight's worth. Trifix, my graphic settings are high, not maximum, but high. Let's see, what else did I miss here?
Sky 206, contact departure.
Captain Bombosa, am I considering doing a Simwings group flight? Is Simwings the one that helps people like get simulators? Is that one? Because if it is, yes. I don't remember who actually runs that, but I've been meaning to talk to the Simwings people and be like, hey, I like what you're doing. I'm down to support.
Albuquerque departure radar contact, present heading, Troy Victor 263.
Alright, Tim says that you're allowed to tell people that you're an alpha tester, but you can't share anything in it. Gotcha.
Sky 206, climb and maintain 1000.
Santiago, the view that I just did around the plane, I literally did it with my hand. I hit a Shift F4 or Shift 4, and I used the arrow keys. I hit Control to slow the camera down, and I just held left while I talked to you guys with one hand. But I also have some pre-made X camera views, like this one, so I'm completely hands off on this one. Matter of fact, we'll leave it there while we cruise for a little while. Turn the engine sound down a bit. That's nice. Legit. Okay. You will get crazy with Orbix and the update 11.5. Really? So, because let's see, right now I'm getting 32 to 35, around 32 frames, honestly, right now, over Orbix Washington. And this is not like the crazy part of Orbix Washington. It's kind of like nothing down there. Once we get closer to Portland and when we get around Seattle, we may start seeing some frame issues. So just warning you. But if you're saying that with 11.5 I can come out here and get better, so that's one of the main things I want to test, is because usually frames are not is a huge issue for me unless I'm flying around Orbix or like really heavy scenery areas. So one of the first things I'm going to do whenever I try to reinstall X-Plane 11.5 beta is I'm going to go to this same area, like Orbix Washington, Seattle, Orbix Florida, True Earth Florida, Great Britain, and check out my frames. Matter of fact, the TBM just updated a couple days ago, so the TBM is compatible with the new Vulcan update, and I have the TBM, I have that version, so I'm probably gonna load that because the TBM, I usually get decent frames with TBM, but sometimes it can kind of be iffy as well. So Orbix and X-Plane, take in mind this update, are really connected. Good to know. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. Have I played EVE Online? I don't know what that is. What is EVE Online? Alright, let me catch up somewhere. With Vulcan, you're getting 60? Oh, heck no. I won't know. I won't believe that until I see it. And I'm probably, let's see. I'll probably do that today, honestly. Yeah, I'll probably, after today's stream, I'll go ahead and install X-Plane 11.5 beta and do some more testing on that. So I want to see for myself. That's what I've been hoping for, is I want to be able to fly in the, that's why you don't see me flying in the Great Britain that much, because I get horrible frames in Great Britain right now with the release version of X-Plane. I don't get great frames either in Seattle, so I'm kind of... What was arrival? Once it's Bravo, descending via arrival. What was the arrival? Make sure we do that right today, because last time we screwed up the arrival. When he said descend the arrival, we were too high. All that stuff. So let's go ahead and just make sure we're doing the right thing here. So the arrival, we're flying today into Portland, and we'll get back on the Vulcan subject here in a bit. So PDX, our arrival, if my computer would load. What is your problem? Arrival is the Hood 4. Alright, Hood 4 arrival. Dash Airlines. Yo, yo, yo. Good to see you. Welcome to the stream, my dude. Alright, here's Hood. At Hood, we need to be at or below 15,000 feet and above 9,000 feet. Our transition is Yentl. We need to be at 13,000 feet. So let's go back down here. And let's just make sure. Alright, so it says here at Yentl we need to be at 13,000 feet. That is correct. Hood between that and that. So let's see what it tells us for a descent, because it does actually tell. It doesn't descend for us, but it should tell us what our descent's going to be. So it says if we want to be at Yentl at 13,000 feet, we need to descend in 10 minutes. So I'm gonna say, let's say we want to descend around 2,200 feet in our vertical speed. That'll be 8 minutes. And it should show on the screen where that top of the descent is. So there it is right there. So one thing I've been requesting for the GTN 750 is to have some kind of notification of when you are close to your top of the descent or when you've reached your top of the descent. Because right now, I would have to just remember to come back and look at this in 8 minutes. You know what I mean? I can leave it here and leave it on the countdown screen, which I kind of do. A lot of times I'll just leave it there. What was that? So we know in 7 minutes we'll be descending. But if I'm on this screen, it doesn't show me a time. The top of the screen. I don't know if there's a thing. If I could change it, maybe there's a thing in here. Let's see. Map setup. That's not it. I think it's change user field. Let's see what options we have. I have wind, distance to destination, ETE destination, ground speed. Let's see if we want to change one of these. Function, generic timer controls, page. Okay, that's cool. I can actually have a VNav quick button. I should add that. I want to see the time to descent. I don't know if that's an option on here. Here it is. Oh, nice. Dope. Heck yeah, I want that. Yeah. All right, so cool. All right. For some reason, I never like thought to adventure in there. But all right, so 6 minutes, we have that on our main screen. I love it. All right, cool. So that's settled. As long as we do that, we should be good to go. I'm gonna go ahead and change our altitude now, though, to 13,000 feet to get ready for that. I'm gonna try to stay ahead of the plane. 13,000 feet. There it is. And we'll also get our ATIS in Portland ahead of time, and then we'll talk a little bit more about Vulcan and how your experience has been, and how I hope mine's gonna be. All right, so right now the weather or the ATIS is Quebec. We have 160 at 5, visibility is 10, scattered at 800. Broken at 4,500, overcast 7,500. That don't sound clear to me. Let's see, temperature 04, dew point 02, altimeter 3019er. Arriving in departure runway 10 left, 10 right. Visual approaches are in use. Simultaneous approaches to parallel runways in use. VFR departures, contact clearance delivery. Advise on course heading, altitude, and if flight following if requested. Notice to airmen, ILS runway 10 left, approach out of service. Good to know. Runway 1321. Closed, read back all runway assignments and hold short instructions. That is the Quebec for Portland. All right, cool. So that took a minute. We literally have 5 minutes till we descend. Dash Airline says Vulcan suck big time, had to revert. For me, that's kind of my experience. I tried Vulcan. I didn't really try it in the Orbix area or anywhere that was crazy. I just tried it like in a regular place where there wasn't a crazy amount of scenery. And it just, I had an error and then it crashed. And that happened to me multiple times. And I was like, well, dang. And so I went ahead and reverted back to the release version of X-Plane and make sure it worked before I got into a live stream. So I had to make sure it works. I wasn't sure if Pilotedge was going to work with Vulkan. I wasn't sure if Citation was going to work with Vulkan. For what I understand is LibRain does not yet work, and a bunch of other plugins like Xpilot, Xpilot doesn't work yet. Like a bunch of stuff. I think Squawkbox or something. A lot of different add-ons do not yet work for Vulkan. Aberdeen Aviation, what's up, man? Good to see you. Welcome to the stream. Judah, what's up, man? Judah Hall. If you own a Citation right now, you would be broke. Why is that? I don't understand. Lee Miles says you're getting 65 to 105 FPS. Wow. See, like, stories like that, I'm like, holy crap, man. Holy crap, man. I want to get that. Like, my biggest pet peeves right now with X-Plane, before Vulkan, because I haven't tried Vulkan yet, and I get this issue a lot because I do a lot of videos. You know, guys, if you follow the channel, I do a lot of reviews and cinematic type cameras, and I hate the stuttering look. Like, sometimes you'll see a bit of a stutter. Like, it's small, but it's annoying. Even if I'm getting 60 frames per second, you'll still see me get a tiny bit of a stutter, and I hate it. I absolutely hate it. And so that's one thing I'm really hoping that it fixes, and that's one thing they say that it's supposed to fix. It's supposed to get you not only more frames, but smoother frames and less stuttering. And that's what I'm hoping for. So we'll see if how true that ends up being. For me, anyways. And yeah, I agree, Lee. I hope that Flight Factor and TOLUS, does it work with Zebo? Because Zebo is something that I hurt for frames as well. We have 2 minutes until our TOD, guys. But Zebo is something else that really kills my frames. I hate to say it, but it does. So curious if Zebo, I'm sure they are gonna have some kind of update like pretty soon. They're pretty quick on the updates. But I would, man, if I can get 60 frames per second in a Zebo, oh my god. Who needs Microsoft Flight Simulator? You know what I mean? Like, y'all, you can take as long as you want on that Microsoft Flight Simulator. I'm happy right where I'm at. You know what I mean? So we'll see. I mean, Raven, if you're saying you're not getting stuttering, man, the shoot for the moon, man. Yeah, I agree, Lee. The thing is, like, a lot of developers were already in on the closed beta. And so you're seeing a lot of like weather add-ons, for example, already putting out like updates, and like the Hotstar TBM put out an update before it was even public. So a lot of developers were already a part of it. Maybe, I assume, with Flight Factor and TOLUS being such a huge part of our community right now, I assume that they were already a part of it. It maybe just took them a little longer to get the update out. So I expect to see an update for TOLUS in the next, couple days, probably, TOLUS and Flight Factor. So hopefully that 767, 757, A320 Ultimate, man, can you imagine the A320 Ultimate running on like 60 frames per second? Holy crap. All right, let's go ahead and descend. We're on Pilotedge, so we got to be on our P's and Q's. Let's go ahead and look at my autopilot over here. We're gonna be descending 2,200 feet per minute. I'm hitting the vertical speed.
Portland clearance. Good morning, standby.
And the way you know, because it's kind of weird, the way that you know how fast you're descending in this plane is you gotta hit scroll the pitch down, and this little instrument right here is your vertical speed. Just keep going until you get to where you want to be at. So we want to be at 22, which is right. That's 21, I think. That's 21. So 20. Wait, no, yes, no, here it goes. 22 is right around here somewhere. And we gotta watch our speed because we're almost at the red tape. So pulling the power back.
5010 minutes after departure. Departure frequency 1.
And we're descending into Portland now, guys, with information in Quebec. Aberdeen Aviation says you are getting some stutters. All right, good to know. It's Razor says, I really gotta get back into simming. It's not like I don't have time anymore. Yeah, man, do it, bro. Do it, man. Dash Airlines, I love PostCon.
Alaska,
By the way,
784,
it's
read that
Amazeball.
correct.
I have been flying the beta for a few days. It's gonna kick some FTSim. Really? I really haven't heard a lot about PostCon. I got an email yesterday that I was accepted into a, what was it called? Closed beta or something for PostCon. I haven't tried it out yet. As something else I'll probably go ahead and download. I don't know if it's compatible with the update, so that's kind of gonna be conflicting. I have a lot of stuff to do. I don't have enough time. The weekend's coming up, and it's crazy. Some weekends I have a lot of time in the game, and then some weekends I have very little. So like last weekend we did some Euro Truck Simulator with me, Raven, and I think somebody else was driving with us on multiplayer just for fun, and it was a good time. So I had a lot of time in the morning, but who knows? That's why I don't make plans to do things on the weekend, because I never really know how much time I'm actually gonna have. All right. Oh snap! Somebody just did something. Who's that? Who's that? Who's that? Razor, thank you for the follow, man. Welcome to the Blue Arrow Royal family. Do I still play Infinite Flight? I have not played for a while, but that doesn't mean I'm not gonna play again.
This is Jeff 405 Julie Hotel, routing ground clear to San Carlos Airport.
It's Razor. You can't fly the B-58 right now in real life, so you might. Yeah, I will recommend, if you can't fly in real life, like a lot of people out there right now, hop in this sim, man. And the cool thing about X-Plane, or just flight simming in general, is it's one of the few things that you can actually kind of like do in the simulator that, you know what I'm saying? Like, for example, racing is another thing. Right now, there's a lot of virtual racing going on, like iRacing, Formula 1 2019, because they're very realistic. And so because we can't get real racing in real life, there's a lot of people who are doing virtual racing. And so it kind of still, like, it's not real, but it still kind of does it for you. It's the same with flight simming. Like, if you're a pilot in real life and you can't fly right now, why not get on the simulator and do some flying, and either the plane you fly in real life or a flight that you wish you could fly in real life, or get familiar with the plane you want to fly in real life. You know what I mean? Like, this is a great time if you are at home and you can't do, you know, some of those things you want to do outside. Some of those things you can actually do in the gaming world or in the sim world. And so I definitely recommend it, man, for sure.
Center, Sky 206.
Sky 206, Sky.
Center, Sky 206. So we have the weather for Taos. So we're requesting the RNAV runway 4 via Dixon.
Captain Reynolds, what's up, man? Good to see you up to the stream.
Sky 206 at Dixon, cleared RNAV runway 4 approach.
At Dixon, cleared RNAV runway 4 approach. Skyhead 206.
Israel says, I always tell the early student pilots that simming is bad for developing flying poor habits, but it's great for the procedural things. I definitely, I could agree with that. I could agree with that. I always believe if your intention is to be a real pilot, I feel like your intentions in the simulator should be different too. And so you should really take the things that you're learning in real life and try to practice and apply them in the sim. But like some things you shouldn't, I guess, cross. You know what I mean? So Milton 12, what's up, man? Welcome back. Good to see you, man. You know why I like you? Because you have my name. But welcome. Good to see you. And I am not using beta right now, just so you guys know. Yeah, that's true, Tim. I've been seeing multiple pilots on like Instagram, including, you know, the most popular, Steve Knievo. I actually messaged him and was like, "Yo, how do you like the Hot Star TBM?" He's like, "I love it." The fact that he replied is a big deal, honestly. 'Cause I don't know Steve like that. I'm not trying to brag. Like, yeah, I know Steve. I texted him. He texted me back. I just hit him on a DM on Instagram, and he replied. But he does it to everybody. That's the great thing. I like that for people who, whenever they become famous, he's famous in his world. You know, like outside of flying, people don't know who Steve Knievo is. But when you're famous in a community, it's very important to interact with people and interact with your fans and stuff like that, because if you just ignore everybody's message, they're gonna stop sending you messages and they're gonna be mad. Now if you're the kind of person who don't want any messages, then okay, sure. But yes, Milton 12, my first name is Milton. ETE, let's take a look. 23 minutes. We're descending right now past 19,000. I want to be at 13,000 at Yentl, which is in about 30 miles. We can take a look at our VNAV screen and it'll tell us whether we are deviating from that. So the vertical speed required at our current speed is about 1,000 feet per minute. So we're actually way ahead we want to be. So that's fine. What I'm going to actually do is I'm going to add power. I probably don't really need to. This is the way I'm going to do it. Add some power. Stay below 250 or so. We're gonna add some power, and that's going to extend our vertical speed range. And I'm actually going to bring our vertical speed back to like 1,000. Honestly, I probably should have did the opposite. Probably should have pulled the power back. Hopefully it's not too cloudy. It did say it was going to be like overcast 7,500 in Portland.
16 Bravo, contact Seattle Center 121.4.
121.4. 16 Bravo. Alright. We're descending via Hood 4. Seattle Center, Citation 16 Bravo, descending via Hood 4. Hopefully that was the right frequency because I didn't hear anything back.
016 Bravo, Seattle Center, Portland, altimeter 3019er, east transition.
3019er east transition. 16 Bravo. Alright, now I gotta find out what that means. What does east transition mean?
So who called for taxi?
Anybody know what that means? 3010. We are 16 minutes, it says, from our bottom of descent.
Runway 34, taxi via, looks like Delta Alpha.
I'm gonna bring up my vertical speed some more because we're still a bit early. We're gonna be at 13,000, by the way, guys, when we get to the Yentl. Not above it, not below it, at 13,000, 13,000. What up, Nicholas? Good to see you, man. Welcome to the stream. When am I gonna play Euro Truck Simulator? You guys apparently like the Euro Truck Simulator stuff. I don't know when yet. Maybe next Tuesday. We'll bring it back for another stream. I wanted to do it yesterday, but I didn't get to stream yesterday. So you know it is. Real life work always comes first. Let's check this because I don't believe that this is right. 13 minutes sounds like a long time to get to this waypoint. Let's check something real quick. Yeah, we're about to pass it in 15 miles. That is not right. So let's go ahead and... Yeah, what are you talking about? We got 2,000 feet to lose in like 10 miles. There's a famous mountain out there. Do you guys know the name of it? Anybody can quote it? Going into Portland. Another one out there near Seattle too. Alright, let's check our chart because she said east transition. And I don't know what that means. Thank you, Daniel Richardson, for the subscription. Welcome to the Blue Arrow Arroyo family. Let's see, does it say anything about that on the chart? We're expecting runway 10, I think, left or right. Comes Yentl, not too far from it. We're at 13,000 now. Aircraft is leveling off. And we're gonna be at 250 knots. Actually, 270 is the speed restriction out here, which I think we shouldn't have any problem. 270 is way up here, so we're slow right now. St. Helens is what this is over here. Let's go and put the power down. Listen to it.
Albuquerque Center, Sky High 206, field and safe, like to cancel all IFR.
Sky 206, Vector 6, I for cancellation is received. Radar services are terminated. Report I for cancellation. Miss Birch Airport. Correction.
Mount Everest. Whatever.
Talk VFR, frequency change of previous sky 206, talk to you soon.
You know that ain't right. When you ask for runway 22 left and the controller gives you a runway 22 right, next thing you see, the controller sees a 737 turn into an F-22. That's right. Christopher Ramirez, what is your country, man? Alright, really quick flight update while we wait for that. 13,000 feet. We got 13,000 feet. We're passing Yentl now. We'll be flying from Yentl to Hood. That's got to be Mount Hood because that's where the waypoint is. That's got to be Mount Hood. But when we get to Hood, though, we had top out to between 15 and 9. We'll probably stay at 13. She might give us something different. We'll see. Let's check our speed, though. We need to be at below 270. And we're way below that. In fact, we need to speed up. Alright, there it is. That'd be so funny. You find Mount Everest flying between Spokane and Portland. Like, how did I get over here? A little tease, little peek at the ground down there through the clouds. That's Helen over there. That's Mount Helen. Puerto Rico. Oh man, you know they just released some new scenery for Puerto Rico. I haven't checked it out. I don't know if I'm gonna buy it. I'm not really trying to buy a lot of scenery right now. But I have a really good freeware for Puerto Rico already, so I'm pretty happy with the freeware that I have. So you gotta really convince me that it's good if it's Puerto Rico. I also just came from Puerto Rico. Oh, hold up, slow down. Just came from Puerto Rico about what was it, January? We went 2 months ago. No, 3 now. 3 months ago. It's April now. And so I actually got to see the airport up in person, so I'm a little picky about that now. What up, Pacific Aviation? Good to see you, man. Alright, we need to be at 250 when we get to Hood. Let's go ahead and get the arrival information or approach information. Which way is 10 left? It's on the other side, that's what I thought. Speed right now is 220. What else do we need? You can see my frames going down as we get closer to Portland.
05, do Hotel Batting Tower, runway 34, clear for takeoff, and wind.
And we'll be expecting probably, let's just put 9,000. And we'll just start descending slowly.
016 Bravo, contact Portland, approach 124.35.
124.35. This is Bravo. Alright, out select, vertical speed. Portland approach, Citation 16 Bravo, passing Hood, sending the arrival.
Citation 16 Bravo, Portland approach, altimeter 3019er. That should have call back, express visual approach, runway 10 left.
Alright, we'll expect runway 10 left for Citation 16 Bravo. Alright, that's what I put in. Alright, we're passing Hood. Taking a look at arrival again. We'd be between 15 and 9,000, so we're at 12, so that's plenty. The next altitude restriction looks like it's going to be like 8,000. And we'll be expecting the visual runway 10 left, which is this one right here next to the river. Yeah, that's a good flight, Christopher. Patriot Highlights. What's up, man? Thank you, man. Really appreciate that. Really do appreciate that. Oh, man, look at that mountain. Jeez, that's beautiful. When will I do Friday Night Flight again? I'm not sure. Probably. I might surprise you guys one day. Might just have to surprise you guys one day. Yeah, Raven, I've been getting the same issue with 11.5, and you guys have been having some great things to say, but I've been getting errors getting in. Alright, here comes 10,000 feet. We're going to turn the land lights on. We're going to level off at 9,000 for now, and it will eventually go down to 8. And we're going to get the approach for runway 10 left, which I think we already got. We do. I'm going to go ahead and put the approach for that as a backup, kind of like we did last time. I was actually very happy that I did it because they ended up wanting me to approach the localizer and stuff. So it's a good thing that I actually did put the approach in. Click down here. I'm going to go down to the bottom. Load procedure, approach, ILS 10. Transition, FTSim, load approach. Alright, so now you can see that's going to be added to our flight out of FTSim. And it's also going to give us the, it should give us, actually it didn't. I think if I active, oh here it is, 1113, so it's in our nav already. And final approach CRS is going to be 103.
Departure November 280, November, just airborne off Bremerton, requesting IFOC pickup.
Man, this thing sounds good. Man, it sounds good.
784 Portland ground, runway 10 left, taxi via Tango Kilo Echo.
I also like that down here it also shows
that is only required
the altitude restrictions here too.
Push will put you onto an active taxiway, onto a movement area, so taxiway or runway.
Does that say blue run? Look at it, blue run. The waypoint. It looks like blue. I don't know. It's warning me about something. I'm not sure what.
Oscar 784. From what I'm seeing, you're like right on the line, so you're safe.
Nice. Take us out the screen. That's the eyesore. We're
280 November, Seattle approach. Go ahead.
Watch our speed, man.
Seattle approach November 280 November, just departed Bremerton.
We're right at 250 knots.
4,000 on the ODP, requesting IFOC clearance to Kilo Echo Alpha Tango.
Christopher Ramirez, that's funny. Have I thought about my first Microsoft Flight Simulator flight? I'm probably gonna go to my hometown first and check that out. Alright, let's get the tower frequency ready. Right now we're talking the Portland approach. We have one more leg after this, and I think we're doing really good on time. Second flight is very short. We'll be flying to Paine Field, just north of Seattle International. Very nice airport out there, and the weather shouldn't be too bad either. It's so challenging, man, to manage your speed. Look at that, finally breaking out of the clouds, and we've got a nice look at the river.
November, you are radar contact.
All right, Pacific Aviation, man. I'll see you next time. Thanks for coming through. Thanks for coming out.
Olympia altimeter 3014. Clear to Pangbourne Memorial Airport as filed. Climb and maintain 9,000.
Okay, clear to Pangbourne as filed. Kilo Echo Alpha Tango. Climb and maintain 9,000. 280 November.
Alright, tower would be expecting 118.3. I have it down here, but I don't know if she's going to give us another. Yeah, we'll probably most likely get tower next. Let's see if we can find that. Airport info, frequencies. and tower 1187. That's in standby. Airport should be over here somewhere. Sky Studios, how do I like the GTN? It is probably one of my favorite add-ons for XP11, and I am not exaggerating. I use it in everything I can possibly use it in. I have my Cessna Citation. I mean, I can't even like mention all the planes that I fly with, because I almost, like, if it says it has a GTN in it, I'm like, it just tells me, like, I almost want to get it even that much more. You know what I mean? Like, my King Air 350 has dual GTN 750s and an Avatab. Alright, so we're gonna watch out here at IMSI. We need to be at less than 230 knots. So right now we're knocking at around 220, but just to kind of keep that in mind when we get to IMSI, we need to be at 230 knots. Let's go ahead and start descending down to 7. Yeah, 8,000 here. Let's go ahead to 7,000 now. Get our autopilot panel back up. You can see the frames are going down a bit lower. Oh, wrong one. And we go to altitude select, vertical speed, and I'm gonna change vertical speed by scrolling this up to descend. And that should be good. We'll pull our power back because, again, this thing just friggin' skates through the sky like crazy. So you gotta really be careful with the speed. And I think, is that Portland right there? No, it's a different airport. What airport is that? SimPilot, what's up, man? Good to see you. What airport is that? No, it's KTTD. Alright, blow our power back. We're like right at 230 right now. There is Portland over here. And the Portland we're using today is by... what's their name? What is their name? Dang, I don't remember. I'm sorry. This could be a great plug for them. Flight something? Dang, what's the name? Hold on, let me see. It's gonna bug the heck out of me if I don't figure it out.
16 Bravo, Portland Airport's offshore, 10 o'clock, 7 miles, report in sight.
Citation 16 Bravo, we do have the field in sight.
Citation 16 Bravo, clear visual approach, runway 10 left, establish final contact tower, 118.7.
Clear for the visual, runway 10 left. Citation 16 Bravo, we'll contact tower. Alright, and we have a tower on here on 1187. There's downtown Portland. There's 10 left, is the one nearest to the river. Flight Beam, thank you, thank you. Flight Beam. This is Portland by Flight Beam. Jeez, I was like, man, I gotta remember the name. Special thanks though to Flight Beam. They did actually provide me with this copy of Portland International. Whenever I did that best videos of 2019 or best scenery 2019 compilation video, they gave me a copy, so special thank you to them for that. The airport is actually really freaking good, and I'm not saying that because they gave it to me. Trust me. if it was trash, I'll tell you it was trash. Alright, so we've already been cleared the visual. That means we don't have to keep flying the IFR route. We honestly could just start descending now. Matter of fact, let's take control of the plane and have some fun. Disconnecting the autopilot now. I think it's disconnected. Let's see if it's disconnected. I didn't get the beep. Nope, it's not. Autopilot off. That's a different sound too. That sound updated. To turn off bank limit and soft ride. And just to kind of take a look at where we need to be for a rough altitude, we'll probably end up around Blazer. We need to be at 2,000, which is actually quite about 5,000 feet lower than where we are right now. So I have the controls. No, I am not running Vulcan right now. I tried Vulcan and it wasn't stable enough for me to run it. Keep an eye on our airport. We are flying visual, so we won't lose visual at the airport. Sitting down to about 2,000 feet. We'll turn our base here in a little while. Danish, what's up, man? Good to see you, man. Appreciate a prescription. What's up, man? Good to see you. Welcome to the stream. Glad to have you. Thank you for the support. Absolutely. Yeah, man. Long time no see, Danish. Where you been at, bro? Where you been at? All right, once we get to like, I don't know, 4,000, I'll turn our base.
Skyhigh 206, clear to takeoff, VOR, via direct.
Land lights are on, guys.
18-2000. Albuquerque Center frequency.
We're clear for the visual.
124.32 and squawk 261.
Alright, I'm turning.
Hold for release.
We're also using track IR. That's how I'm moving my head around. It's a little device attached to my headphones.
Skyhigh 206, feedback correct. Sky 206, roger, this is advise ready. Alaska 8, correction, Alaska 784, contact departure.
Beautiful, man, beautiful. Orbix does their thing, man. They do their thing. And honestly, like, Orbix makes me, it gets me excited for MSFS, because this is like the closest thing that we're going to get right now to Microsoft Flight Simulator until it comes out.
SXGIO, contact Seattle, approach 120.4.
And then I also wonder, like, you know, how is Orbix going to incorporate their sceneries into Microsoft Flight Simulator? You know, because we all know there's going to be areas of the world. Oh, snap. Almost overshot it. There's our runway right there.
SXGIO, Seattle,
I know.
approach Olympia, altimeter 3014.
Bank angle, bank angle, bank angle, bank angle.
How far are we? What's that, like 5 miles, what do you think? We at Portland Tower, citation 16 Bravo, about 5 miles on the visual, runway 10 left.
Citation 16 Bravo, Portland Tower, runway 10 left, clear to land, wind 150 at 5.
Clear to land, 10 left, citation 16 Bravo.
Phoenix clearance, good morning, Delta 3124, IFR to Salt Lake.
Look at that, there's a plane flying right over top of us. See it? Alright, we got downtown Portland off our right. Airport's on off our nose.
Delta 3124, Phoenix clearance, clear to Salt Lake City International Airport. Quick
Andy, suggestion between Falcon 50 and Premier 1A. Personally, I would go with the Falcon 50 if I had to choose between the two. But if you're more interested in a smaller, lighter jet, the Premier 1A is a good plane to fly. They both use the Proline 21 avionics, so it's very similar in the cockpit, except the Falcon is just bigger and has an extra engine and longer and heavier, a lot heavier. Alright, gears coming down.
Delta 3124, read back direct.
Send in your predictions, guys. What do you think today? Smash or pass? Man, we are high. Speed right now is about 127. I think I see one red. We have a very slight crosswind from the right. I should try War Thunder. I've tried it before. When it comes to like games when it comes to like, you know, air combat, I prefer to play DCS World. Speaking of DCS, I think they've been doing like free. Well, first of all, DCS World is free in the first place, but they've been doing like free trials or whatever the heck you call it, where they let you try out different add-ons for free on certain days of the week. I think they've been doing it all week. I think it's about to end though, so you might have just missed out on it.
Thank you. And
I have a lot of them. I have the F-18, the F-16, the F-14, the F-5, F-15. I have a bunch of stuff. I haven't tried. I've been kind of wanting to try the warplane, some of the older, like the Mustang. I want to try that out, but I think I might have missed my opportunity on that.
206, release for departure, clearance void. If not off in 5 minutes. If not off in 5 minutes, advise intentions not later than 8 minutes. Change to advisory frequency approved.
This thing can go slow. We're at 90 knots right now. Alright, flaps are down, gear is down, and 3 green. Clearance received. I got 2 white, 2 red. Shout out the flight beam.
100.
100. 10 left, confirmed.
50.
Uh-oh, we got traffic on the runway.
40. 30. 20. 10.
Oh, baby, 59. Heck yeah. And reversers are coming out.
Alaska 784, contact Seattle Center 135.15.
We didn't even need reversers. I just want to hear them. Nice, we'll exit to the right.
Citation 16 Bravo, exit right Alpha 9 and taxi to parking via Alpha Victor Kilo.
Alpha 9, Alpha Victor Kilo wants this, bro. Alpha 9, Alpha wants it. Alpha 9, Alpha Victor Kilo. I gotta get my freaking chart. Alpha 9. Where's it at? Where's Alpha 9? Hurry, hurry. I hope this is Alpha 9. This is Alpha 3. Where the heck is Alpha 9?
350.
Are you sure? Alpha 9 is way down there. You say Alpha 9, or we're on Alpha 3. That's what's happening.
Sky High 206, Alpha Character Center, Ida.
Whew, alright, that was fun. That's my kind of flight right there. A job well done. I love executive jets. The Citation and Gulfstreams are your favorite executive jets. Absolutely.
206 to radar contact 5.5 miles west of Taos Airport, Taos altimeter 3004.
I'm pretty sure she said, because this is Alpha. Alpha Whiskey Kilo. Isn't that what she said? Can you guys remind me? Because I do not remember.
Sky 206, just confirm you said you're above the cloud layer and you want to cancel I-4 now?
Alright, land lights off. Strobe lights off.
206, IFR cancellation is
Where's it at?
received. Did you want to continue radar services? Sky 206, radar services terminated. Call VFR, frequency change approved.
I know, right? If only I can get a negative 53 with a 737. Man, I'll be pretty happy when that day comes. I think my lowest in that is probably like a low 100 in a 737.
The 405 Hotel to Cinepots discussion maintain 9,000 Sacramento altimeter.
Ooh, X-Plane Aetion, you're developing at CJ3? Bro, yes. We need one of those. I'm excited for that. That is an amazing thing to hear. That is an amazing thing to hear.
80 November contact Seattle Center.
'Cause I know that Carenado just released a P3D version of the Citation something. I don't remember what it's called, like X something. But my hopes are not very high because of the recent releases that it's gonna actually be worth it. So I'm hoping that we can get some more business jets. Cause like last year, at a certain time of year last year, we were getting a ton of like really dope, like this I think this came out. No, I think this was in 2018. We got the Falcon 50, we got the Citation Mustang, we got the Premier 1A. We got a bunch of jets that came out around a few months from each other, which was pretty dope. Where is the FBO? There's Atlantic. We'll go to Atlantic. But lately it hasn't been any. We're all waiting for the Falcon 7X from Aerobas, so you know, looking forward to that. But CJ3, I'm really looking forward to CJ3. Sovereign. Oh, yeah, that's what it is. Citation XLS. Like, it looks cool. Like, I like the way the plane looks, but I'm not very confident. I was very disappointed in the C90 that came out, the C90 GTX by Carenado. Also very disappointed by the Carenado C208EX that came out. Super disappointed with those two planes. So much potential in those two aircraft, but they just didn't. I think it has something to do with, you know, with this Carenado Thronda split, that their planes have just came from like an average of 8 stars to like 2 stars. It's pretty sad. All right, guys. So we're gonna watch the replay, and we'll get loaded up again for a short flight to Paine Field. Park and brake is set, and let's see what this thing sounds like when we turn it off.
November, I can get you direct one of them. I'll just have to climb you to 12000 or 13000 if you like. Great, 0 November, climbing to 13000, clear direct Wenham. Expect ILS
Oh boy, this sounds nice. This sounds real nice. All right, we can disconnect the Pilotedge. Check out the replay for that silky smooth landing we just had. Oh yeah, I can't wait for the Citation in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2. That's gonna be fun. When I saw that, I was like, I felt like people weren't really excited to see the business jet on Microsoft Flight Simulator, but like me being a person who loves business jets on simulators in real life, I was like, oh, I'm super hyped. I was just as hyped about the Citation as I was about seeing the A320neo and the 747. Like that's just me though, you know. I'm also gonna disable traffic global because it trips out during the replays. I'm gonna turn that off too. All right, they're gone. And Project Fly, we're gonna go ahead and yeah, man, that's a very good landing actually. -60, I'll take it. Beautiful. All right, and replay. Samurai Black, we just left Spokane. It's a good looking runway, ain't it? Not sure. I'll do something like that. Ah, it's a good idea. I should have requested Progressive Taxi. Well, I mean, it was such a simple taxi she gave me, though. I didn't want to bother her. I just couldn't remember. Oh my god, look how smooth that was. I'm like, is it down yet? Is it down yet? Beautiful, man. Otra vez, guys. Again. Oh, this thing does look spicy. Like, this thing is the kind of spicy that's not too hot that burns you, but like it's like flavorful spicy. You know what I'm saying? That's my kind of spicy. You're allowed to take shots at him. Like, I'm not saying to talk down on Carenado. It's just that, you know, I'm honestly, I have been a fan of Carenado despite everybody else hating them. I've been a fan of them. I just been disappointed lately. Matter of fact, I actually did a review for the Carenado C90 GTX that I have not released because it's not a very good review. Well, like my review, it was good. Like my job of reviewing it was great. It was amazing, but my, you know, thoughts on it was very, you know, You know, I'm usually positive, very positive. I was very positive, but also honest. All right, wing view. Here we go. So it'll come out eventually. I haven't been very inspired. Like I don't like doing bad reviews. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't inspired to finish it. Like it wasn't like the plane didn't wow me. So I just haven't put it out yet. Yeah, 757 Spy is pretty cool. I don't know him personally. I think we're part of the same group on Twitch. So whenever I'm not streaming and he's streaming, usually my Twitch channel will host him. I'm not sure if it works the same way the other way around, but I'm cool with that. I've stopped into some of his streams. He's a pretty cool guy. He also flies in VR too, which is pretty cool because I also have VR. I have not done a stream yet in VR. I haven't got all that set up yet. Maybe I'll do it when I get maybe I'll do it once I get Vulcan, because that's the issue right now with all that stuff is like frames and all that. All right, do I have another view? Nope. Okay, I don't have another view. We did float a little bit here, but I mean, I think that's perfect. Look at that. Look, oh my god, it's probably one of the smoothest landings I've ever done, except for the nose. Nose came down kind of hard. All right, guys, let's go ahead and move on to flight number 2. Alright, I'm gonna plug the GPU plug the GPU back in while we get ready. Hopefully I don't have any issues with Pilotedge. Last week when we flew Pilotedge in the Legacy 650, I had an issue where I did my first flight, everything went great. Did my second flight, or I tried to do my second flight, and I could not connect to Pilotedge. It was weird. Alright, we need to turn off a few things first. Beacon off is off because the engines are off. Nav, we'll leave that on. Recognition lights can come off. Other than that, we are gravy. Alright, so I'm gonna open up the door. I have a key. Where's that?
Unable to find view ID 19.
I have a button. Oh, here it is. Nice. There's also a I found out there's a mod that you can mod the interior textures and colors. So somebody has a mod out there that has variations of the cabin, which is pretty cool. I haven't tried it. This is a default one, but they have variations of it, and I was like, that's kind of cool, as well as more liveries. All right, so the next flight, guys, we're heading to Paine Field, Kilo Papa Alpha Echo. I'm gonna really quickly get my flight plan in order. I've already kind of made a flight plan, but I have not filed it, so I'm gonna file the flight plan, and I'm gonna talk to Pilotedge and get our clearance again. I believe Portland is a class Charlie? Charlie? Jay knows the way. What's up, man? Good to see you. Aiden, we just landed in Portland. We took off in Spokane, and we're headed to Paine Field in Seattle. Oops, my bad, guys. There we go. With the good old GTN 750. One way to reset it, if you ever want to reset your GTN, just for why not, you can just turn your avionics off and then turn it back on. And it reloads it. It'll clear it out. Alright, so super simple flight plan for the second leg. Basically, we're gonna be going direct to Battleground. We'll probably get some kind of departure, so that's fine, but we'll see what they give us. And then we'll be flying the OLM, or I think the Olympia 2 arrival into Paine. I've never actually flown into Paine Field on Pilotedge, so I'm curious to see how all the airspaces and everything work, like how all that mixes up. Let's get back on Pilotedge. Actually, let's wait for me to file this first. Same call sign. November 16 Bravo. Slant Golf. And oh shoot, that's fine. Foul. All right, now we can log back on. And let's see if the ATIS works out here.
ATIS information Romeo. 1653 Zulu. Wind 190 at 5. Visibility 10. Few clouds at 800. 6,000 scattered. Ceiling 7,000 broken. Temperature 6. Dew point 2. Altimeter 3018. Arriving and departing runways 10 left, 10 right. Visual approaches in use. Simultaneous approaches to parallel runways in use. VFR departures contact clearance delivery, advise on course heading, altitude, and if fit following is requested. Notice to airmen. ILS runway 10 left approach out of service. Runway D21 closed. Read back all runway assignments and hold short instructions. Advise on initial contact. You have information Romeo.
All right, we have Romeo, guys. There's no over to clearance now.
Portland International
120, 125. Once we get through that, we'll go to ground. So I'm gonna put that in a pre-selected position right there. And hopefully we can hear things. Hopefully it works. The plane is not on, technically. Let me see something. Because this is what happened last. There we are. Hello.
8.5 miles west of Brazo intersection. Durango altimeter 3003. Clear to Durango. As filed. Maintain 12000.
Oh yeah, I did turn off traffic global. I personally like it, especially if you're flying in an area where there's not a lot of traffic. I don't believe there's. It might be one other person around here. I don't know. Is anybody here? I don't know. I'm not looking at the map, but I think we're like the only person in Portland. It might be one other plane flying around here somewhere. But I prefer it because a lot of times the places that I fly in are not very busy. I don't really fly in huge events that often, especially in streams. It's nice to have a little bit of traffic taxiing around and taking off around you. So they get in the way from time to time. They do, but you know, it is what it is. All right, so we're on clearance, and we're gonna get our clearance to Paine. Portland clearance, citation 16 Bravo IFR to Paine Field.
06 GIO, you're 5 right 5, just cruising. Delta 3124, Phoenix.
We might have got stepped on.
Contact climb view Civic 72, level 210.
I'll give it a second. See.
Citation 16 Bravo, clear to Paine Field. Portland 1 departure battleground is filed. Maintain 7,000. Expect flight level 280, 10 minutes after departure. Departure frequency 124.35. Squawk 7217.
Clear to Paine Field via the Portland 1 departure, battleground transition, expect 7,000, 280, 10 minutes after departure, departure 124.35, squawk 7217, citation 16 Bravo.
16 Bravo, read back tracked.
Beautiful, that's what I like to hear. All right, so same flight plan, she just added a departure to it, that's all. So we'll add the Portland 1 departure. We'll probably get runway 10 right. Wait, where are we? We'll probably get 10 left. Yeah, we'll probably get 10 left. And load departure. Be vectors on the departure. After that, we'll go to battleground. I don't know if that's gonna actually show, because battleground is technically part of the departure. We'll just put BDG in here. Battleground. After battleground, super simple. We'll be flying the Olympia. Was that 2? Olympia 2 arrival, but I'm gonna put in Kilo Papa Alpha Echo first, and then I'll go load a procedure, arrival Olympia 2 battleground. because Battleground is also the transition for our arrival as well. I don't know what runway we're gonna get. I like to know. I know sometimes we won't know, or a lot of times we don't know, but I want to know. I like to know what to expect if I can. So we have, let's see, arriving departing runways 16 left and 16 right. Let's expect 16 right, but I have 16B. What the heck does that even mean? So anyway, that works. Load arrival, and that's all good. So now we can actually switch over to ground. We got our clearance. Our what's this? Our squawk is 7217. Enter. Initial climb be 7,000, which I already have right there. We'll be getting 28,000 for cruise today. I don't know if we'll make it that high, and if we do, won't be there for long, but that's all good. All right, so we're on ground now, and we can actually go ahead and also pre-select tower. We'll get the engine started and get taxiing pretty soon.
Salt Lake Center 128.72.
Let's go get tower. Airport. Again, I love this freaking GTN, man. It's just so helpful, because usually I would have to type all this in, and it takes so much longer. Beautiful. All right, so we got the flight plan done. And there she blows. Can't even see it because we're all underneath the terrain, but it's there. All right, cool. So now that we got that, let's go ahead and actually brief our arrival and all that stuff so we can see what it actually looks like on the chart.
206 at Corky, cleared eye left, runway 3 approach.
We'll turn her down. We don't need her yet. Glad to have you, but we don't need you yet. We'll get rid of the Spokane charts and the irrelevant Portland charts, like the arrival and the approach. All right, that's gone. And we need the departure for Portland, the Portland 1 departure. Probably kind of similar to the Spokane departure, where it's kind of like just a direction and then you get vectors. So if we get 10 left, let's see. If no contact, ATC 10 blah 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 blah. Alright, 5,000. That she gave us 7. Departures like these are always kind of weird. Alright, here we go. Initial climb. Alright, so 10 left and right. We'll go heading 103. There's some obstacles on runway 3. Takeoff minimums 3 and 10 right. So from way 10 left and right, go 103 to 500. Then assign expected radar vectors. So same as the Spokane departure, we'll just take off at the heading as it says. So 103 to be the heading, and then we'll expect vectors. So we'll just climb up to 7,000 until she tells us otherwise. All right, let's go ahead and get the Paine Field information. I love this airport. This airport we'll be flying in is by Wiki, which is great, but also worries me because some of his scenery is kind of hard on frames. You know what I mean? Arrival, Olympia 2. Oops, what did I do? Here it is. And then we don't know what we're gonna get, but I will go ahead and get the airport. So we'll get the rest of that stuff later. Game is Zolly, what's up, man? Good to see you. Welcome to the stream. Bishoy. So that, yeah, 16 left is super tiny. So we'll expect 16 right. This is like a GA little. We probably could make it on 3,000 feet. I think we could do it. Anyways, let's get moving. We're here. I think we're on a movement area. We might not be. Let me look at the scenery. We'll get the engine started first though. Let's get the door shut. I'll just do the button. I'll just do the button. We're all loaded up. We got our passengers on board, our very important people. Matter of fact, since we're talking about very important people, if you're watching and you're listening to my voice right now, I want to give you guys a shout out to show you how much I love and appreciate you. Go in the chat, leave me a fun emoji. I'll give you a shout out and we'll welcome you aboard as we close the doors on this Citation 2X550. Where is the button I'm looking for? It's over here. That's not it. There it is. Alright, fuel boost pump. Oops. Go away. I don't want you. I don't want you. I don't want you either. What is that? Being taken over by the buttons. Okay, oh, there we go. Alright. Fuel boost pumps on, guys. Ignition switches are on. And we're starting both engines at the same time. Is it doing it? It's doing it. Alright, music off, headphones on. Special shout out to the Sky Studios. Thank you, man, for joining us. Raven, Bishop McGalley, Graham Porter, Marshall, TBH. Thank you guys for coming through. Nicholas Gaming. Who else is in here with us today? Adrian Guzman. What's up? Thank you, man. Starly, what's up, man? Didn't even see you come through. Slid in all secret like Jay knows the way. What's up, man? All right, one thing I forgot to do is this right here. Oh yeah, oh yeah. All right, let's go ahead and turn the generators on so we can disconnect the ground power unit. I always forget to do that. Matter of fact, I think we forgot to turn it off. We'll reset it though. Reset and on, and ground power is gone. Beacon light should have been on. It's on now. I did forget to get fuel. Whoops. You know, I think we have enough. I think we have enough to make it, but just in case. Oh, 37 minutes. Yeah, we're gonna just go ahead and put a couple hours in there. Just gonna pretend like that didn't happen. There we go. All right, generators are on, avionics are on, inverters is all good. We'll turn off the fuel boost and ignition switch because the power is on. Pitot windshield heat is on. We can turn on the rec lights. Beacon is on. Safety lights are on. Anti-skid is on. We have no annunciators beeping at us. 7,000 is our initial climb. We're on ground frequency. Affirm we are. Bill Johnson, what's up, man? Good to see you. FS Experience, good to see you as well. Welcome to the stream. All right, beautiful. All right, let's take a look real quick. As much as I love that sound, we need to turn it down a little bit and see if we're in a non-movement area or not. I think I don't see a line. There's a line here, but that's some other kind of line. I don't know. This is a... I think this... I don't know, guys, because it's... like, if I were over here... Yeah, I can't even tell if it's a non-movement area or not, but I think that it isn't. But while we're over here, check out Portland by Flightbeam, guys. All SAM jetways. Great modeling. I think they did a great job at this airport. I love this part. This is how the real thing is, but I love the detail in the like, what have you called it, bushes hanging off the side of the parking garage. Very cool. Take a screenshot of this since we're in here. Since we're in here, this is just a beautiful screenshot. I love airports like these, beautifully designed. It's not even Flightbeam, it's just the fact that whoever designed this airport in real life did an amazing job. And they did a good job of duplicating that. There's Southwest taxiing. You see why I like Traffic Global? Because if we didn't have Traffic Global on, there would just be like empty gates everywhere. And that's something that bothers me. Look at that. Parking garage is nice. Here's a tower. They got some little like facilities in the between. Here's parking lot. A few more hangars. You should be able to see. Yep. Actually, I love it when airports include these things. Not that they actually matter, but I like it when they include like the parking signs, and you could probably follow this and it would be correct. Like I'm pretty sure whoever made this like went to Portland, took pictures of every single sign, and then modeled them. All right, we're gonna go to short-term garage because we're not gonna be here for long. Go to level 7. Just kidding. Oh, we got lost. All right, let's head back. I got something over here. What is this? Nothing. Okay. There's a hotel. The Sheraton. Probably where the pilots stay. More stuff's over here. Dope. All right, back to the plane. All right, let's just go ahead and ask for taxi. We're here at Atlantic. Yeah, we're at Atlantic, and we have the weather. Let me find out what the weather is. We have Romeo. No, November. No, that's not right. Romeo. We have Romeo. Altimeter 3018. And no more stalling. Let's get going. Turn transponder to on, enter, back, go. All right. Turn her back up and we get some paper or something to write on so I know what my taxi instructions are this time. Portland and ground, citation 16 Bravo, ready to taxi with Romeo at Atlantic.
Citation 16 Bravo, Portland ground, runway 10 left, taxi via Kilo Echo.
10 left via Kilo Echo, citation 16 Bravo. All right, beautiful. So Kilo Echo. So we'll take this one right here. All right, headphones on. If we hear this thing spool up one more time, let me get before I forget, I always forget. Every time I freaking forget on the second flight. Let me turn on Project Fly. You guys are not going to see anything. I don't have the Project Fly overlay, but at least I'm able to track it myself on my end. Portland to Paine. And releasing park and brake. And we're moving. But we're not moving yet. Now we're moving. Again, guys, we're using the FTSim sound pack for the Citation 2. I have a link in the description of the YouTube video if you're interested. And it's definitely an enhanced version. Absolutely an enhanced version of this flight. I mean, of this sounds. And I thought the original sounds were really good, but these sounds, especially when you hear the engine spool up, it sounds amazing.
Center passenger bus altimeter 3008.
So it looks like the AI are actually using the opposite side of the runway. Alright, this should be Kilo. Yep, it's Kilo. Oh, it says that this taxiway is closed. Uh-oh. Whoops. No more mod fights. See United 737s over there. I see Delta. I know Southwest is on the other end. But you guys got me all hyped, man. Now about trying out the whole Vulcan update with some things you've been saying. Maybe I need to try it more. I've only tried opening X-Plane 3 times with 11.5. And I think all 3 times it crashed. So I'll try it again and we'll see what happens. See if I can get it to work. Beautiful terminal in Portland. I've never been to Portland in real life. I don't think I've ever been to Seattle either. I've never been this far north of the Pacific. You know me, Graham. I'm always trying to race. Speaking of races, so NASCAR, which you guys I've been following, is racing at Bristol Motor Speed, which is a very small half mile. It's a half-mile oval in Bristol, Tennessee. It's a crazy short track. Here's Echo right there. It's a second to the right.
Juliet, ready
And
to go, runway 12.
I did a race yesterday. I was hoping to record it and maybe post it later, and I wrecked out so bad. It was the worst wreck I have ever been in on iRacing, probably. That might be exaggerating a little bit, but it was really bad. It's probably one of my top 5 worst wrecks I've ever had on iRacing since I've had the service. And I'm gonna post it on Instagram, and I might post some of it to YouTube, like for the gold members maybe. But I'll definitely post it to Instagram. Probably, maybe later today if I can get around to it. I gotta send it to myself. Williams Jr., what's up, man? Good to see you. It was horrible. It was so bad. Definitely didn't finish. Oh, wait. Yeah, he said 1-0 left. Okay, make sure. Or she said 1-0 left. Alright, let's go ahead and switch over to tower. I'm gonna hold short right here. And then departures on 12435. And again, we'll be flying at a heading of, just kind of reminding myself of the departure here, 103. So let's change my heading to 103, which is over here somewhere. This is 12, 11, 10. And up to 7,000 feet.
Guide high 206, application center for cancellation is received, and it's passed for the Sky 2.
Nice. I haven't done the sky things. Anti-collision lights on, strobes. We'll turn the wings on because why not?
3124, contact Los Angeles Center 124.62.
ATC is awesome. Alright, where we at, guys? We're all at Echo. Portland Tower, Citation 16 Bravo, holding short 10 left at Echo. Ready to go.
Forward Big Sky departure, 77 Juliet.
016 Bravo, Portland Tower, runway 10 left at Echo, clear for takeoff on departure flight heading 085.
On departure 085, we'll take a 10 left. 085, let's see, what is that? 0867885. Alright, we got that in. Let's go. Alright, so altitude select. Hit heading select and altitude select. Alright, that's cool. This will be our flight director. And once we take off, we'll pretty quickly turn on autopilot. We're probably going to have an issue with Traffic Global on departure, so just warning you there. Headphones on though, guys, because it's going to sound amazing. Bishoy, congratulations, man. I know you've been doing ATC in Australia out there, so that's great to hear that, man. It comes a long way from us flying on Infinite Flight to you now being a VATSIM controller. That's amazing. All right, I love hearing all the stories. Ah, you shut up. I don't know what that button is about. We have an engine fire? No. All right, airspeed is alive. Very alive. There's 100 knots. We can rotate right there. And we're airborne. Positive cloud gear up. And we're out of here. Alright, on departure heading 08 whatever. So let's go make the left turn now. Oh, she sounds amazing. Autopilot's coming on. And vertical speed, yaw damper. There we are. Flaps up. We'll clear out that warning. I still don't know what it was for. Uh-oh. We're fast. Oh, we're super fast. Jesus. Slow, 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 please. We're... Slow down before she realizes that we're going fast. Tell you, man, this thing can get away from you if you don't pay attention. Oh, it sounds so good. We were super fast. It was like beep, 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 beep. Oh, God. Goodbye, Portland. Next stop, Paine Field. Oh, shoot. Wait, did she tell me to go to departure? No, she didn't. I don't think she did. Did she?
CIO, Seattle Approach. Good to have you back. We'll turn left heading 340 is the approach request. So 16 Bravo, contact departure.
Departure, what's the problem?
GIO, turn left heading 340.
Alright, here's 7,000.
Request.
Ah, sounds good.
Left heading 40. We are making 340 heading right now, SXGIO.
SXGIO, make it 10 degrees left then.
Departure, Citation 16 Bravo, we're at 7,000.
Citation 16 Bravo, Portland departure, radar contact, turn left direct battleground, climb maintain 15,000.
Turn left, direct battleground, and climb and maintain, was that 15,000 for Citation 16 Bravo?
Affirmative.
Roger, direct battleground and 15,000, Citation 16 Bravo. Alright, so, left, I'm gonna turn my heading bug to the left first, which is where battleground is in the general vicinity, up to 15,000 feet. There is terrain around us, so we need to get up pretty quickly. I'll turn on bank limit and soft ride, altitude select, vertical speed, and climb. Alright, 15,000 feet is put in. Go down to my GTN. I'm gonna hit click on direct. Activate battleground, and then you turn on nav mode, and now the aircraft's going to fly straight to battleground. Beautiful, man, beautiful. And yes, I was playing with the engine to hear all the different sounds, the different pitches of the sound. Welcome back, US Airways. World premiere. This plane is a paid add-on, yes. You can get it from, I think, the X-Plane store, as well as Carenado's store, and probably Sim Market. I don't really shop on Sim Market, but it's probably available there. The add-on sound pack is from FTSim, and I'm not sure if it's a free sound pack, or if it's like you need to be a Patreon to get it, because I know he has a lot of sound packs, and some of them you need to be a part of his Patreon to get it, and some of you don't.
Alaska 784 to Santa Paz, sketch, maintain flight 240.
Alright, we're going to continue our climb, a bit steeper, 15,000 feet. We'll do about 2,000-ish, 2,100 feet per minute. So if you guys were curious about bank limit and soft ride, most people know what that is. But I know bank limit, can I click it again? No. Bank limit basically limits your bank, so it keeps you from banking too steep in order to give you a steeper ride.
16 Bravo, contact Seattle Center 1.4, 121.4.
I'm sorry, you kind of, say it again.
16 Bravo 121.4 Seattle Center.
Thank you. 121.4 Seattle.
SXGIO, advise you have EDIS for Paine Field. November is currently current. Thank you. Do you have an approach request, or are you just looking for the visual?
Ay, ay, ay. It sounds so good, guys.
SXGI, roger, expect that.
Seattle, citation 16 Bravo, climbing past 1,000 for 15,000.
Citation 16 Bravo, Seattle Center, climb and maintain flight level 230.
230 for citation 16 Bravo.
I was called.
Alright, up to 23,000 feet. Gives me a chance to flex on these engines. Ah, sounds like good. Boro, this is not X-Vision. I don't own X-Vision.
Alaska 623, Seattle clearance, clear Spokane Airport, Seattle 7 departure, Seattle.
Last stream, we were trying to figure out what I was using because I've been trying out some different stuff. So I'm using, I think it's a Lua script called X Visibility, as well as Cloud Art. So if you search Cloud Art on the forum, it's basically a cloud replacement. So it replaces X-Plane's default clouds with their own clouds. So it's free, and then it uses the X Visibility Lua to do something else with it. I don't know the technical part of it, but that's what I got. That's what I'm using right now. I usually use X Enviro. Today we're not using X Enviro. We're trying this out again. Here comes 15,000. We're still climbing for 23, so we'll continue our climb. And then in addition to that, I'm also using Active Sky. Active Sky. But I'm not using Active Sky's clouds. I'm just using Active Sky for the weather information to draw where the clouds are supposed to go. US Airways, what is the first video that I've ever made? I would prefer not to tell you. I would rather you go look yourself. I actually know what it is. It's, whenever I go watch it, it's pretty funny. But I recommend, or I'll give you the challenge of going and finding what my first video is. Matter of fact, if you find it, leave a comment on it so I know that you made it that far. But Nathan, what's up, man? Good to see you, bro. Welcome back. Oh yeah, I love this plane too, man. Yeah, that is correct. If you turn off shadows, draw shadows, it only turns off shadows on the scenery, like airport buildings, trees, stuff like that. It doesn't turn off the shadows in the cockpit, from what I understand, or from your own plane. And also from what we... 125.1, citation 16 Bravo. 125.1, Seattle Center. Seattle Center, citation 16 Bravo, passing flight level 180 for 230.
Citation 16 Bravo, Seattle Center, climb and maintain flight level 280.
Dang, 28. Flight level 280, citation 16 Bravo. 280, bro. Beasting it right now. Let's go. This flight is super short, but we're hitting 28,000 feet. 28 minutes from our destination is what it says. We're only flying from Portland to Paine Field. We'll be descending via the Olympia to arrival. So let's go ahead and get that because it's going to be a very short flight. Once we get to 28,000 feet, we'll probably have to descend.
SXGIO, turn 10 degrees left.
Also, let's make sure we not block all this important information. It's 18,000 feet, by the way. We'll go standard 29902 on the Barrow. There it is. All right. Wait, this is Seattle. Huh, they use it the same thing. Interesting. I didn't know Seattle and Paine Field shared an approach. That makes sense, so they're right next to each other. So our plane is already right here. Let's just look for some altitude restrictions and make sure we don't miss any. We actually have already passed Battleground, but this is not to scale. Let's see, Olympia, turbojets. Turbojets landing south. They are landing south, right? Isn't that what we saw? Yeah, south. So they're landing south. So turbojets landing south. That's what we are. at where is it? At Lacey, we need to be at 270, 17,000. And that's already put in here, which is great. Let's go to our VNAV. Utilities, VNAV, and I want to descend at about 2,000 feet per minute. Enter. Means we're at 8.5 minutes until we get to our top of descent at this speed. Once we get to cruise, it'll be a different story. We'll probably be at cruise and then come right back down. I guarantee it. Kieran, how come it's the same voice? That's just the way Pilotedge works. You'll have the same controller controlling multiple frequencies, so she's probably controlling all of the stations in the Pacific Northwest is what I'm assuming, you know, in the area. But she's also controlling. I heard her speaking on Albuquerque Center too. So like the controllers who are online right now kind of split up the airspaces between them, so that it's not like 100 controllers. You know what I mean? They could have like 5 people, 3 people controlling different ones. So they all kind of like take on a different workload. So you'll hear her on multiple frequencies, and if we went down to LA, we might hear a different guy. You know what I mean? So it kind of depends. But it also gives you ATC on every frequency, which I like. Anyway, so we know that. So 17,000 at Lacey, or is that Olympia? That's Olympia. This is Lacey. So that much at Olympia. So check a look here, make sure it's right. 17,000 at 17,000, not above, not below. Matter of fact, right here it says at or above, but on mine it says at 17. But I'm okay with doing at 17. All right, Olympia is next. Showing our top descent in 5 minutes. Let's go back outside. Enjoy the view for a very short period of time. We're at 25,000 feet. As soon as we get up there, we'll be descending.
Request to depart.
Ooh-wee. Frames. Oh, Vulcan, come save me.
Set up for the visuals.
Can you get a toilet paper discount? I'm sorry, man. This flight is worth 5 sanitizers and 3 rolls of toilet paper.
Alaska 784, actually, I'm going to put you south of the field just because it's lower altitude to the south there. Heading 110.
Thank you, Bishoy. It's called cross frequencies. I didn't even know that was a phrase.
77 Julie. Correction. Salt Lake Center 133.4.
I still have the video of me flying on IFACS.
6 Bravo to set up house discussion. Maintain flight level 240.
Down to 240 at pilot discretion. November 16 Bravo. All right, so she's giving us space to clear descent as low as 24,000 feet. And we just finished. We just finished climbing. Literally just got to 28,000 feet, which is our cruise. Not much of a cruise, more like the top of a roller coaster. And our top of descent says 2 minutes and 30 minutes, so 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So I'm gonna go ahead and go with our descent plan.
And cross Delta, maintain flight level 240.
Cross Delta at flight level 240, Delta 3124.
But I will go ahead and set my altitude to 24,000 feet. That is as low as she's allowing us to go right now. But 2 minutes until TOD. Man, I love this plane. I do. I really want to fly the Falcon 50 next. Like I feel like lately, I don't know. I guess like we've been doing a lot of Airbus, like a bunch, and so I've been kind of want to get away from the Airbus. We did some 737 flying. We did some 747 flying. We did some. What else did we fly? Flew something else that was big. So now I'm kind of been like in the mood to fly some jets, some Citations, some Legacy 650s. I enjoy flying the Legacy 650 so much that I want to fly it again. But today we're flying the Citation. Think about bringing the Falcon 50 out. I heard that they have a mod where you can replace the screen with a big old freaking GTN in it. So I'm like, I need to get that for me. Maybe we'll do that next time on Pilotedge next week. And the dope thing about these jets is that every seat is first class. All right, let's go ahead and descend now. We're just seconds away from the top of the descent. I like to descend early because usually I miss it. So whenever I do things right, I descend early. So 2,000 feet per minute was what I was planned on doing for our descent. So that's what we're gonna do. So 2,000. We're at 28. We check our utilities again. It'll say required vertical speed is 1900. Oh, and we're already speeding. So pulling the power back. Thank you, daughter, for the follow. Welcome to the Blue Arrow Royal family. Glad to have you with us. Thanks for coming out. All right, the beep's gone away. Again, I have my altitude right now set to 24. That's as low as being cleared. Hopefully by the time we get there, she'll clear us to go quite a bit lower. Can I check the menu? I don't know. I usually avoid clicking links during live streams. Send it again. Send it again. So. Huh, you got a Falcon up in Canada on FSC? I'm about to check it out. Andy, yes, I do love this jet. I love it. Do I mind chilling on Sea of Thieves or ETS after stream? I would like to. I don't think I'll be able to right after the stream. I actually gotta do some work before I can do anything else, actually. Right after the stream is over. Alright, there's 24,000 feet, though, by the way. Ooh, so we're leveling off. We actually slowed down. So we'll have to figure out what she wants us to do. Because we should be descending. It is hard to believe this aircraft is so old. This aircraft is like from the 80s or something. Like, it's super old. This plane is older than probably anybody in chat and me. It actually might be somebody old enough, but most of us are younger than this plane. Thank you, Bishop. I really appreciate that, man. Your growth too. I was mentioning it earlier. What's up, Ghost Customs? That it was pretty cool because you know, when it comes to aviation streams, I started out doing infinite flight.
016 Bravo, contact Seattle Center 126.6.
126.6, 16 Bravo. Seattle Center, Citation 16 Bravo. We're at 24,000 feet.
Alaska 784, contact Salt Lake Center 133.25.
3325 Alaska 784.
016 Bravo, Seattle Center, Seattle altimeter 3009, center maintain 12,000.
Down to 12,000, Citation 16 Bravo. 12,000 guys, 12,000.
Alaska 784 240.
Alaska 784, Salt Lake Center.
She sounds tired. Like, she always sounds tired. Like, I feel like she has a second job where she like probably works all night and then she comes and does Pilotedge as a second job. Maybe she's just very soft, like spoken. Alright, we're going down to 12,000 feet.
Alaska 784, you're looking for a visual approach?
Affirmative, Alaska 784. We can take something else if it's...
Daughter says I'm 54. Okay, well, you got me beat. You got me beat. The plane's from 1978. Anybody, like, are you old enough? I don't know. I don't want to do the math right now, but 1978, it's yeah.
Sir 7 Tango Charlie, contact Fresno.
Andy, I also do love the Challenger 300. Matter of fact, for years, the Challenger 300 by Deep Den for X-Plane has been my favorite jet. I still like it a lot. But I don't know. I think I need to fly it because I haven't flown in a while. I've been flying the Citation. I've been flying other planes, so that they've kind of like gotten my interest. They got my eye. And it's been a while since I've flown the Challenger. So if I fly a Challenger, I'll probably fall in love with it again, to be honest with you, because there's a reason why it was my favorite for so long. All right, so I assume, what mountain is that right there on our right wing as we're approaching Paine Field? We should be flying over Seattle, I think. Actually, here's Olympia, which is south of Seattle. There's KC up there. And she gave me clear to 12,000. I don't know if I need to be at 17,000 Olympia anymore. Because she didn't tell me to descend via the arrival either. So we're just kind of, she's just kind of descending me. But yeah, again, it's cool seeing people who came from Infinite Flight back when I first started streaming on Infinite Flight, and now seeing them fly on things like Pilotedge, like Nathan, seeing people like Bishop McGalley flying on, controlling on FTSim. Like, it's just cool to see like people like growing not only in their knowledge for aviation, but getting more involved in the flight sim community as a whole. You know, I think that's cool. The thing I always believe is, like, I know there's a lot of different simulators out there. P3D, X-Plane, FSX, the new Microsoft Flight Simulator coming soon. There's mobile ones like X-Plane, Aerofly, Infinite Flight. And for me, I'm like, yo, get in where you fit in. Like, if you can handle a PC sim, go for X-Plane, go for P3D. If you can't handle one of those, and by can't handle, I mean your machine can't handle it. I'm sure you can handle it as a person. But if you can't, get a mobile simulator. Get a mobile flight simulator. Get Infinite Flight. Try out Aerofly. Try out, what's the other one? The other ones. You know what I mean? Like, get in where you fit in, man. Like, it's plenty of room for all of us. And we all have the same interests. We all love aviation and flying, and some of us are real pilots, some of us are not. Some of us can't fly for different reasons, and we get our fix in on the simulator. I don't think I've ever heard a female controller on FTSim. Are there any female controllers on FTSim? 1965, man, he probably made the Citation too. I don't mean that in any offense at all. I'm just saying, like, you're probably old enough that you probably could have designed it when you were very, very young. I wonder when we're gonna get a Honda jet on X-Plane.
I'll have a distance for you a little later.
Don't buy RFS. Alright, Graham Porter. It's kind of late for snacks, but Graham Porter did bring snacks aboard. So while we're descending, if you're a little nervous, you need something to munch on, he's providing Coca-Cola, Diet Coke, fruit water. What the heck is fruit water? Tea, coffee, salted pretzels, a burger served with salted chips. There's a meal deal for $13. Any starter, mains, dessert, tea, or coffee. Fruits and nuts for your starters. Selection of chocolates. I like chocolate. Mains, chicken pie. Potatoes, vegetable, and gravy. Macaroni and cheese. I'll take that. And there's dessert. 1% chocolate cake. So, matter of fact, we're going to skip all the other stuff. And right now, we'll tell the flight attendant, or the flight attendant, Graham Porter, to serve 1% chocolate cake to calm everybody down while we descend and land in the Paine Field. Alright, we can speed up. We've been cleared all the way down to 12,000 feet. Again, we're not really descending via SID. She didn't really give us a descent via SID. Even though we're flying the SID, she didn't give us a descent via. This is interesting though. I've never done a Seattle approach, but landed somewhere that's not Seattle. That's cool. Yeah, so this same arrival serves for Paine Field, Boeing Field, and Renton.
Salt Lake Delta 3124.
Delta 3124, standby. 487, take a Charlie, contact Oakland Center 125.75, 2575.
Alright, she did give us an altimeter 3007. We have information in November in Paine. We'll go ahead and put that in.
Delta 16 Bravo, contact Seattle approach 120.4.
120.4, what's the Bravo? 120.4. I have to say it really fast or I will forget.
Number 405, Lima Mike.
See, I got a new controller.
12 taxi via Alpha, cross runway 26 on Alpha.
There we go.
Sierra Extra Golf India Oscar, turn right, heading 090.
Seattle approach citation 16 Bravo 11 off at 12000. We have information.
16 Bravo, Seattle approach, roger, thanks for November.
Robin, what's up, man? We're headed to Paine Field, just north of Seattle International. Matter of fact, we're about to fly over Seattle in a little bit. I'm going to show you on the map.
3003.
So Seattle is here.
Turn left heading 330.
330. Alaska 784.
Matter of fact, I'll show you here too.
Delta 3124, contact Salt Lake City Center 125.57.
Load.
Delta 3124, Salt Lake City Center 125.57.
Alright, here's Tacoma, Lakewood. There's Renton.
16 Bravo, expect visual approach runway 16 right.
Alright, we'll expect the visual for 16 right. 16 Bravo. Alright, let's go ahead and put that in.
Salt Lake Delta 31 Airport, descending through flight level 300 to cross Delta at flight level 240.
Delta 3124, Salt Lake City Center, cross Jaminat and maintain 17,000, Salt Lake City altimeter 3003.
I like this guy too.
Cross Jaminat 17,000, 3003, Delta 3124.
I don't know.
Sun Country 154, San Francisco Tower, runway 1 left, cleared for takeoff, wind 030 at 4.
We'll probably come in from the west side. We'll just put CVB. We're probably not actually going to fly to it.
Oscar descend and maintain 3,000.
All right, we're almost there. Yeah, he's cool.
Alaska 623, Seattle ground, runway 16 left, taxi via Bravo.
What about DCS where it was hard for you to set up, Tripix? Like the controls, I guess?
Sierra X-ray Golf, any Oscar, turn right heading 130, intercept runway 16 right, localizer.
Because DCS is definitely a challenge to... The thing is you have to know the plane. Like every plane has a different kind of setup for the controls. Like with X-plane, I can hop in here and fly anything, and basically everything does the same thing that I press. And then I have a few buttons that I have mapped to my joystick. That's me. Sorry, was that for Citation 16 Bravo?
Sierra X-ray Golf, India Oscar, turn left heading 350, maintain 5,000.
I think that last call was for me. Not sure, maybe not. I think it was for somebody else. We should be expecting vectors right now, so that's
Country 154,
kind of expecting something.
Departure.
But yeah, everything is different on DCS World. Like you got to know how to operate the weapon systems and have buttons to map for it. It's different things, and it's crazy. Honestly, if you want to get in DCS World and fly something very simple, like you do the Flaming Cliffs pack. It includes a F-15, a Su something, A-10. Like it has a very easy setup.
Sun Country 154, NorCal departure, radar contact.
Robin, you stopped playing DCS and went full time on VATSIM. I just updated my VATSIM. I mean my DCS a few days ago. I had an issue. I had to uninstall it. I had to uninstall it and reinstall it.
vectors the ILS.
because I had some kind of error.
Alaska 784, what works best for most turbojets going into Jackson Hole is the ILS Zulu from Denora. Are you able to take it from Denora?
Yeah, we could do that. Alaska 784.
Alaska 784, proceed direct the Denora VOR and expect the ILS Zulu runway 19er approach.
Okay, direct Denora, and then we'll expect the ILS Zulu 19er approach.
Yeah, my first video was what you said, U.S. Airways, a basic aircraft landing video, which is a GTA 5 video, and it wasn't very realistic if you look at it now compared to what we do now. But at the time, I didn't have a flight simulator. All I had was a PS4, and I loved aviation, so on GTA 5, I spent most of my time just flying around.
Sierra X-ray Golf India Oscar, turn 10 degrees left, descend and maintain 4,000.
And whenever they came out with the Rockstar editor, my first like test video that I made was with the 747, or with the, GTA 747.
Number 12 Bravo, descend and maintain 10,000.
Number 16 Bravo down to 10,000. Hope he was talking to me. All right, 10,000. Vertical speed, and down we go. I'm gonna turn the land lights on now so I don't forget. Jake, what's up, man? Good to see you, man. Appreciate that. I really do appreciate that. Welcome, man. Welcome, welcome. Welcome to the Blue Arrow family, my dude.
Alaska 784, we're direct Denora. Are we cleared the ILS or just
Graham and Raven, man, I don't know. I already got people at work texting me, asking me to do stuff, so I don't know how much time I'm gonna have. Oh, plane right underneath us.
Wind 190 at 13.
That was close, Jesus. Come on, Marcus. Oh my God, look at the view.
13,000 Alaska 784.
Somebody else calling step on.
Seattle, right below us. Downtown Seattle. Screenshot.
For 405 Lima Mike, Missoula Tower, runway 12, cleared for takeoff, wind variable 4.
That is beautiful, man. Oh my God.
Sierra X-ray Golf India Oscar, descend to maintain 3,000, Paine Airport, 12 o'clock, 8 miles.
That wasn't for me, was it? I think it was. 8 miles. We're farther than that. Are we? That's BFI. Seattle, we already passed it. Yeah, we're not 8 miles away. We're more like 15. Is somebody else landing in Paine? Seattle, sorry, was that last transmission for Citation 16 Bravo?
Number 16 Bravo, last I had for you was 0,000. Where are you headed now?
Currently heading, looks to be 340 towards Paine, Citation 16 Bravo.
Are you on the Olympia arrival?
Not exactly. She didn't really descend us via the arrival, but we flew up to the vector point and we've just been flying straight.
Okay, there's no descend via on the Olympia arrival, but there's instructions as to what you're supposed to do after Fort. What's your heading?
Whoops. Heading is 350 for Citation 16 Bravo. Sorry about that.
And number 16 Whiskey Bravo, possible pilot deviation for not flying the Fort or the Olympia departure procedure.
There it is.
The Olympia arrival procedure after Fort. Turn left heading 330. Descend and maintain 7,000 vectors. Visual approach runway 16 right.
330 and 3,000 Citation 16 Bravo. Sorry about that. I do see my mistake now.
Number 5 Lima Mike, contact Spokane departure.
There it is, guys. I was waiting for it. I missed this part right there. Ay. There it is. Possible pilot deviation. That was an absolute pilot deviation right there. It wasn't possible. That's just what happened. Yeah, last thing he told me was 10,000, but I don't know. Learning experience is all I'm gonna say. I'll tell you one thing. If you get it wrong, he knows how to tell you.
132.905.
All right, altitude select, vertical speed. We're going down 3,000 feet. We're doing so good. Why are they calling me? We're doing so freaking good.
I got multiple people calling at the same time now, guys. Sierra X-ray Golf Indy Oscar.
Dang it, man.
Canceling IFR at this point doesn't really do much good. So clear to visual approach, runway 16 right. Enter right downwind. Contact Paine Tower on 132.905.
All right, we do have somebody landing ahead of me. All right, so we're going 330 down to 3,000. And what happened? Oh, shoot.
Number 405 Lima Mike with Spokane departure. Again, in case I missed your radar contact, climb and maintain 16,000.
Come on. Come on, what are you doing?
Alaska 784. Just because I got saturated with the missed approach, unfortunately, we did miss your approach clearance. Turn right, heading 020.
I'm sorry. It was my fault.
No
I messed up the flow. It was all blue. It was all citation. I was looking at the view. I got distracted.
Multiple people calling again, guys. Sun Country 154, Oakland Center, climb, maintain flight level 290.
I missed my girl.
Alaska 623, Seattle departure, radar contact, climb and maintain 15,000.
Oh, funny.
Sierra X-ray Golf Indy Oscar, Paine Tower, yep.
Honestly, it's the worst when you're doing an actual rating. I'm not doing a rating, so like I don't feel as bad. But if I was doing a rating, I would feel a whole lot worse.
The beautiful thing about staying on your IFR clearance is that you don't need to report your position, but I appreciate it. Sierra X-ray Golf Indy Oscar with Paine Tower right down, runway 16 right, cleared to land. Wind
Speaking of Paine Tower, let's go get Paine Tower.
Delta 3124, Salt Lake Road, yep.
Alright, so it's going to be giving us vectors for the final approach.
Via Delta 5 arrival, altimeter 3007, expect visual approach, runway 16 left.
Prescription, you have a number for me to, ready for me to copy? Alright, what is it? Typical Marcus, yep.
Number 487 Tango Charlie, flight following services no longer available, radar services terminated, squawk maintain VFR frequency.
I can't believe I missed that, man. Jeez. This is what happened when you don't brief and read the entire thing. As you guys probably saw, I only read up to like this point. After that, I was like ignoring the rest of it. But at Fort, we were supposed to turn left to 343.
Alaska 623, turn
that's what we were supposed to do.
040, clear direct Zeta.
But we did, and we passed Fort. So I kind of thought that the GTM was gonna have us do it on its own, but I guess it didn't. But I guess I was too dependent on the avionics there. But so we ended up just going straight.
Number 16 Bravo, say altitude, you were assigned 7,000.
Oh shoot. We're actually at 4. I'm sorry, I thought I heard 7. I mean, I thought I heard 3.
Number 16 Bravo, maintain 4,000.
4,000, citation was Bravo. There's another one. Now it's all going.
Seattle Center, Alaska 623, climbing to 15.
Oh my god. I could have swore he said 4,000. 3,000.
In addition to your assigned altitude.
Currently at 11,000.
Could have swore he said 3,000.
So your check-in should be 11,000, climbing 15,000 if that can help. Alaska 623, climb.
Nick, have I played Assetto Corsa? Yes, I have it. I actually enjoy it. It looks amazing in VR. Looks amazing in VR. Alright, let's get a real quick check. Let's get back on board, guys. Let's get back ahead of this thing. Our airport is over there behind us. Go look at it. There it is over there.
Cross Hobo at maintain 16,000.
He cleared us to 4,000.
We'll tell you when we're going down, Sun Country 154.
Let's get slowed down, because we're fast now.
Alaska 784, turn right heading 100.
100, Alaska 784.
Number 9 Lima Mike, contact Salt Center 133.4.
I know, Jake. Give me those Fs.
Salt Lake Center, TB.
Q, what I would recommend for you, man, is check out verticalsimulation.com. He has a project called V-States, and if you're looking just to do ortho in Florida, he has the entire state of Florida covered in ortho. It's also even been color corrected ortho in Florida, so you can just download that package and then boom, you have Florida. All you gotta do is put it in your custom scenery folder and you're done. Super easy. So I recommend that for you if you're.
080. Descend to maintain 3,000. Reduce speed 170 or less.
I think that was for me. I think that was for me.
November 16 Bravo.
Yes, November 16 Bravo. Please repeat.
November 16 Bravo. Turn right, heading 080. Descend and maintain 3,000. Speed 170 or less.
080 3000 170 or less. 16 Bravo. All right, 080. There's 6. There's 7. There's 8. Down to 3000. Yeah, he's getting annoyed now. We're on his bad side. Oh dang. Down to 3000. Slow down to 170. There it is. 170 way down here. Power. Shut the music off and we'll concentrate here. And let's finish the flight without getting yelled at anymore. The part that everybody
623
dreads
traffic off your left
about.
side. We'll call it at 10 o'clock.
Put the spoilers out.
Eastbound altitude indicates 17,600. Type unknown altitude unverified.
We'll be looking 623.
Do they actually like
623.
record your pilot deviations on Pilotedge somewhere? Can I go look and see how many I got?
November 16 Bravo. Turn right, heading 140.
Right, 140. 16 Bravo.
Delta 3124. Contact approach 125.7.
All right, there's 3,000. And no faster than 170. We have tower programmed and ready. Yep, you live and you learn. That's the thing, man. I tell people dread this moment on Pilotedge, but at the same time, it's a learning experience, and you learn from your mistake. I now know. Make sure I read through the whole freaking chart and pay attention.
Dale Center, Alaska 623, passing 20.8, climbing to flight level 230.
Delta 3124, Salt Lake, Roger.
As long as we can finish this off with a smooth landing.
Number 16 Bravo, turn 10 degrees right.
10 to the right, 16 Bravo. We were at, was it 13? Now we're at 15. No, 14. Now we're at 15.
Number 77 Juliet, report with the weather at Idaho Falls. Let me know if you have an approach request.
77 Juliet, cancel IFR.
November 77 Juliet, IFR cancellation is received. Radar service is terminated. Squawk and maintain VFR for exchange crew.
Alright, airport is off for nose.
77 Juliet.
Don't quite have
16 Bravo, the airport, 12 o'clock, 12 miles. Report when you have it in sight.
I have it in sight. 16 Bravo.
For 16 Bravo, clear visual approach, runway 16 right.
Clear visual, runway 16 right, 16 Bravo. Alright, beautiful. We also have it on here.
Dale Center, Alaska 623, level at flight level 230.
Here's Paine Field.
623, Seattle Center, climb maintain flight level 310.
Climb maintain flight level 310, Alaska 623.
Deactivate approach mode if we want, and get that on our
TBM 495,
flight director.
In the tops here, request flight level 180 or 200 hail.
Number 5 Lima Line, climb maintain flight
Captain
level
DeGroot,
180
is the citation worth it? I think so.
Maintain flight level 180, TBM 495.
Where are we going, plane? Oh no, no, we're not doing that today. Where are you going? I don't know where it's going, so we're gonna turn it autopilot off. And my controls. Soft ride off, bank off.
Delta 3124, flight present heading, vectors to visual approach, runway 16 left.
And I do have the field in sight. Let's land the plane, guys.
Delta 3124,
let's finish strong.
210 if you're able.
Airport is right over here. I think. No, where is it though, for real? Alright, it's right here. I think we just overshot. Yeah, we did. It's right here. Wow, we overshot by a lot. One thing I love about the Paine Field approach is that it's like on like a very steep cliff at the end, or right before the runway. Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it, man. Glad you were able to stick around.
716 Bravo, contact Paine Tower 132.95.
132.95. 16 Bravo. That's a different one. 132.
Sierra X-ray Golf, any Oscar, where do you like to park?
5. All right, we're on it.
Sierra X-ray Golf, any Oscar, taxi, ramp via Alpha, my frequency.
Paine Field Tower, Citation 16 Bravo on the visual for runway 16 right.
Delta 3124, turn right, heading 150.
Alright, flaps come down.
Tower 16 Bravo, Paine Tower, runway 16 right, cleared to land, wind 190 at 11.
16 right, clear to land. Citation 16 Bravo.
Class 784, contact Jackson Tower.
Over to tower left 784.
Alright, let's do it one more time. Beautiful water off our left.
Kind of like TBM 495, Liam Mike's looking
and our right.
pretty bad here. Request file 200.
Delta 3124, Jackson Tower, runway 19, clear to land, wind calm.
I appreciate that, Andy. I wondered who was watching my streams when I wasn't live. Seatbelts on, guys. Seatbelts on.
5 Liam Mike.
Gear is not yet out yet. Go ahead and drop them now. OG Blue Pill, what's up, man? I'm also streaming on YouTube. We're live on YouTube and on Twitch, as usual. But it's up to you to watch wherever you like.
Open center, Sun Country 154, we're starting our descent now.
Oh my god, the sounds.
Last calling, stepped on, say again.
Sun Country 154, Oakland Center, we're descending now.
Sun Country 154, thanks. Last 623, descend at pilot discretion, maintain flight level 240.
Alright guys, send in your predictions.
Descend at pilot discretion, maintain flight level 240, Alaska 6.
Landing rate,
Delta
smash or
3124,
pass.
the airport, 12 o'clock, 12 miles, report when you have it.
1,000.
Delta 3124, squared visual approach, runway 16 left, contact tower 119.05.
We're a little high.
500.
It's at 95 knots right now. I have a crosswind 11 knots off the right.
Power 800, Boise clearance, clear to Seattle Airport, Boise 3 departure, vectors, ULA, then is filed, climb and maintain 16,000.
Alright, we're low now.
Departure frequency 119.6, and squawk 4634.
100. $50. 40.
Power 800, reback correct.
30. 20. 10.
Delta 3124, Salt Lake City Center, correction, Salt Lake City Tower, runway 16 left, cleared to land, wind calm.
The first one was better. 130, I'll take it though. We came in really shallow.
Center 132.6.
Came in really shallow.
132.6.
We're not gonna need any break. Any
23 contact Seattle Center 132.6.
32.6, Alaska 633. Seattle Center, TBM 495, Liam Mike, flight 200. Continuous light chop.
Or 405 Lima Link, Seattle Center, roger. Number 16 Bravo, taxi the ramp via Alpha, you stay on my frequency.
To the ramp via Alpha with you. Citation 16 Bravo. Alright, that's easy.
Seattle Center, Alaska 623.
Alpha and basically saying go anywhere I want.
To 240.
Alright, let's go. I don't really know where to park.
Alaska 623, Seattle Center, roger, Spokane, altimeter 2994, cross Zoomer at and maintain 1000.
RG flight is closest. I don't know where that is.
At
There's a spot that I usually park at when I land here. I remember how to get there, but I don't know what it's called. Actually, yeah, I'm gonna park there because
sorry for that. Thanks for your patience. Appreciated. Taxi the ramp via Alpha, my frequency.
I like what they got. Let's see. Fuck, I know how to get there. I think it's down Charlie. Yeah, it's over here. Central ramp. So we'll take it there. Alright, land lights off. Strobes off. Thank you, CJ. We started out really strong today, I'm gonna be honest. We started out really strong. Kind of got caught up in the halftime area, you know what I mean? Some things did not go so well in the approach phase of the second flight. First flight was spotless though, man. I was very happy and proud about that first flight. Second flight, a little sketchy in the approach area. Got yelled at a little bit on descent. Missed the waypoint and whatnot. But I think we finished strong today. I mean, the good thing is the passengers have no idea what happened in the cockpit, so I'm happy. Have I tried the Vulcan update? Yeah, I mentioned earlier. I tried it last night and it was crashing on me, so I went ahead and uninstalled it, went back and reverted to the release version so that I could do a live stream today. But probably once we finish the stream, which we're almost done, I'll probably go ahead and try it again tonight and see what's up. But I also want to play some Euro Truck Sim or American Truck Sim tonight, or race. So there's a lot of things that I want to do if I have the time to do it. So many things that I want to do and not enough time to do them. There's some dope planes on our left right there. I don't know what those are. I think those are refueling. Yeah, those are refueling airplane. What do you call those things? No, this is not Boeing Field. This is Paine Field, but there's also a Boeing factory here too, I think. We have some people waiting for us when we get to our parking spot. Just wait for it. I should try doing a flight in the Boeing Field too, though, because I don't think I've ever actually flown in the Boeing Field, especially not on Pilotedge. And usually, whenever I come out here, the weather is so bad I can't even see the scenery. KC46, thank you.
Contact NorCal approach 119.2.
119.2, temperature 154.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Who was that just said that? Hold on. There's our client right there. All right. Look at him. Look at his watch. I'm on time. We're good. We're good. Parking brake set, guys. We're done for the day. We'll lock her down. Shut her down and lock her down. Thank you, Marcus, for the ATC. Thank you, Pilotedge. Sorry for my mistakes. You know, a little rusty, but took it on the chin. Decent landing at a low 100 landing rate. I'll take that as well. What are we missing here? I guess you can go ahead. We don't need the GPU. We'll just go ahead and shut it down.
Salt Lake City Tower, thanks. Taxi to the ramp. You can go straight in on hotel if you like.
Beautiful. OG Blue Pill. For the longest time, you feel like you're the only black guy doing flight sim and truck sim. Good to see others. Yeah, man. Yeah, I felt the same way. Now I know like 4 of us, which is cool. It's really cool. Captain Austin, what's good? What's up, man? Good to see you. Welcome to the stream. Brian Montgomery, what's up? Alright, let's watch the replay and we'll get out of here. Let's shut the door because I don't want that open on the replay. And we'll get out of Pilotedge before they get mad at us for that too. We've done enough wrong on Pilotedge today for one day. I think I'm good for the day. I've gotten my practice in. Like sometimes I feel like Pilotedge is sort of, wait, did my engine not shut off? It didn't. Hold on. Yeah, left engine was still on. All right, now it's off. All right, replay. But yeah, sometimes I feel like Pilotedge is sort of like aviation gym. I had a subscription, but I didn't have time to use it. And it's like I had this like gym subscription, this Pilotedge gym subscription, and I wasn't practicing and using it because you know you guys know and frames. For trying to be a pilot someday, and I feel like Pilotedge is one of those things that you need to work on and actually use to train you. Even though sometimes there's days when like you don't do so well, you still need to get on and like freaking grind it out. Alright, so we did float right there, and we did bounce as well. We did bounce. But it wasn't that bad. If that had been my only landing today, I'd have been happy with it. But because that first landing put us at such a high standard with like a negative 50, like, you know, this doesn't stand a chance against that. I'll take it though. I can dig it. I can dig it. Alright, let's watch it from the wing view. Put it from the left wing. We used like no runway. We made this first exit. We came in low, like super shallow. We came in super shallow. Oh no, did I close my chat? My bad. Bam, 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 bam. This is a very nice airport too. I do have to say. I'm using Orbix, True Earth, Washington, and I'm also using Jerswicki Airport, Seattle Airport's XP. So it includes Renton, what else? Renton, Paine, Boeing Field, another one. It's really nice. Look how low we were on the threshold. Nice, nice, nice. I'll take it. I'll take it, guys. Anyways, that'll be it for today. That's a wrap. 2 flights down. Got some more hours on our Pilotedge. Racked up a couple more pilot deviations. All in a day's work. Well, guys, you're amazing. Thank you so much for coming through and hanging out with me today. Hope you guys have an amazing Friday. Staying healthy. And if you're not staying healthy, I hope you're being entertained. Man, good times, good times. My thoughts are always for you guys out there. Praying for you, thinking about you. Citation S550, FTSim sound pack, loving it. Sounds amazing. Looking forward to Microsoft Flight Sim. You can see the Boeing factories out there in the background. Or not factories, but like hangars with like some things being painted back there. Pretty cool. Until next time, my guys. Remember, you have 3 choices. Give up, give in, and give it all you got. in anything you do. Peace, love, and God bless you. I'll see you guys next time. Next video. I'm out.